Chapter 364. Even if Ouyang Shua offered a high price, the Black Mamba was still doubtful. Money is only one aspect. The Black Mamba paused and organized his words before saying tactfully, "The most important thing is that our brothers are used to being undisciplined. I'm afraid they won't be able to adapt to staying in the same place." Ouyang Shua nodded and said, "Brother Black, you don't have to be in a hurry to refuse. You can listen to my arrangements for the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group first before making your decision. Please speak. If the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group moves to Shanghai City, there are 4 options." Ouyang Shua's thoughts became clearer as he said slowly, "First, to be a spy in the Military Intelligence Department. Second, to be an instructor in the Special Combat Training Base. Third, to enter the Shanghai City Army as a scout squadron leader or a battalion commander. You can choose. In the future, it's not impossible to accumulate military merits and be promoted to a brigade commander." The position of brigade commander was the red line drawn by Ouyang Shua. Above that, the commander of a division had to be an NPC general. No matter how confident Ouyang Shua was, he didn't dare to hand over an army of tens of thousands to a player. Ouyang Shua's first 3 conditions had already moved the Black Mamba, especially the third one. The Black Mamba knew that there wasn't a single player in the Shanghai City Army. Obviously, in order to rope them in, Ouyang Shua had broken the rules of the army. His sincerity could not be said to be insufficient. What was even more rare was that the 3 options catered to 3 types of personnel. Basically, the members of the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group could find a suitable position in Shanghai City according to their preferences and specialties. Even so, the Black Mamba was still calm and collected. He wanted to hear the last option of Ouyang Shua. After all, although the first 3 options were tempting, they still had to stay in the territory and accept the leadership of the Shanghai City Army. This still didn't solve the most important problem. As mercenaries, some members liked to go around and inquire about information. They didn't want to be cooped up in one place. "The last option is related to you, Brother Black." Ouyang Shua glanced at the Black Mamba and said with a smile, "Related to me?" Immediately, the Black Mamba's interest was completely aroused. The Black Mamba snake was doubtful. There was another reason. Perhaps it didn't think that it would subconsciously reject Ouyang Shua's proposal. One of the reasons was that Ouyang Shua's plan seemed to have nothing to do with the Black Mamba snake. As the leader of the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group, Black Mamba couldn't accept that his power would fall to someone else. "Not bad." Ouyang Shua nodded and said, "Brother He, you should know that Shanghai City has set up offices in the 9 royal cities. On the surface, the office was just a point of contact. Secretly, it's also an intelligence station." The Black Mamba snake understood. This kind of arrangement was too common. In the real world, embassies stationed abroad had the same responsibilities. The original intention of building the intelligence station was good, but the reality is very cruel. I've never been satisfied with the work of the intelligence station in Royal City. Basically, they haven't obtained any important information. At this point, Ouyang Shua could only shake his head and sigh. If the various intelligence stations had been a little more helpful in investigating the bloodshed incident, Ouyang Shua wouldn't have asked Rattlesnake for help. "You mean, you want me to preside over the intelligence station?" The Black Mamba snake's expression was a little displeased. An intelligence station chief was not worthy of his attention. In comparison, the director of the Military Intelligence Bureau was even more important than the director of the intelligence station. He couldn't be worse than Cobra, right? Ouyang Shua smiled and said, "Of course, I won't let Brother He suffer like this. I'm preparing to set up an organization called the Black Snake Guard. With the 9 intelligence stations in Royal City as the center, it will radiate to the entire China region. It will be responsible for the investigation, analysis, and organization of external intelligence in the territory. I wonder if Brother Hay is interested in being in charge of establishing and leading the Black Snake Guard? The Black Mamba Snake's eyes lit up when he heard this. According to Ouyang Shua's description, the authority of the Black Snake Guard was very big. The position of the Black Snake Guard was similar to the CIA in the early years, mainly responsible for external intelligence. In Ouyang Shua's plan, the Military Intelligence Bureau, the Black Snake Guard, and the yet-to-be-established Security Bureau would be the three intelligence agencies of the territory in the future. The Military Intelligence Bureau was only responsible for military intelligence, and the Black Snake Guard could only operate outside the territory. The Security Bureau was responsible for monitoring all activities and personnel in the territory. Its position was above the Military Intelligence Bureau and the Black Snake Guard, and it was the core intelligence agency in Ouyang Shua's plan. It was because of the Security Bureau's supervision that Ouyang Shua could be at ease and let the Black Mamba Snake establish the Black Snake Guard. The Security Bureau, this heavyweight department, had not been established, mainly because Ouyang Shua could not find a suitable candidate to be in charge of establishing and leading the Security Bureau. Without a doubt, the Security Bureau had to be Ouyang Shua's most trustworthy person. At the same time, since they were in charge of monitoring the Military Intelligence Bureau and the Black Snake Guard, the Security Bureau's ability in intelligence work was naturally very high. Among the territory's NPCs, even maintaining the operations of the Military Intelligence Bureau was hard enough. Who else had the ability to shoulder this heavy responsibility? Therefore, Ouyang Shua could only delay the establishment of the Security Bureau. And with the future change of generals in the Military Intelligence Bureau and the establishment of the Black Snake Guard, the establishment of the Security Bureau had to be put on the agenda and became one of Ouyang Shua's key tasks. Ouyang Shua's promise was really full of sincerity. After the Black Mamba Snake weighed the pros and cons, it said, "I accept your proposal." As it spoke, the Black Mamba Snake got up and came before Ouyang Shua. It cupped its fists and bowed, saying, "The Black Snake greets the Marquis." Ouyang Shua accepted it calmly. Black Snake officially became the code name of the Black Mamba Snake in the Black Snake Guard. Next, the two discussed some specific details. First, the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group left the newly established Guild Alliance and officially disbanded. More than 500 mercenary group members were divided into the Military Intelligence Bureau, the Special Combat Training Base, the Army, and the Black Snake Guard according to the principle of voluntary participation. From today onwards, the rattlesnake would become a term in history and no longer exist. Second, every mercenary group member would receive a one-time settlement fee of 200 gold coins. The 5 core members would receive a one-time settlement fee of 1,000 gold coins. As for the Black Mamba Snake, Ouyang Shua paid a one-time settlement fee of 5,000 gold coins. The families of the mercenary group members would all be moved to Shanghai City to settle down. Every family would be given a small courtyard free of charge with all the daily necessities. Just the settlement fee alone, Ouyang Shua took out 120,000 gold coins. The Black Mamba Snake really had nothing to say about Ouyang Shua's generosity and extravagance. And to Ouyang Shua, to be able to use 120,000 gold coins to take over the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group was a very good deal. It could be foreseen that with the addition of the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group, the improvement to the territory would be comprehensive. Not to mention anything else, just in terms of intelligence they would receive a qualitative improvement. With the expansion of the territory, coupled with the increasingly complicated external environment, intelligence work would become a key basis for the territory's decisions. It was not an exaggeration to place great importance on it. Of course, Ouyang Shua was not a fool. There had to be restraints. More than 500 mercenary group members would individually sign an employment contract and a confidentiality agreement with Ouyang Shua. The contract would stipulate harsh clauses for breach of contract. As such, it could prevent betrayal to the greatest extent. To the black mamba snake, this was also an important assessment indicator. Ouyang Shua handed the black snake guard to the black mamba snake, so he had to be responsible for the loyalty of the black snake guard members. Third, regarding the black snake guard's funding, Ouyang Shua promised that in the second year of Gaia, the black snake guard would receive 3,000 gold coins a month. The next year's budget would be determined based on the black snake guard's work result. The general principle was that the next year's budget would not be lower than Gaia's standard for the second year. In addition, Ouyang Shua also prepared an additional 10,000 gold coins as the black snake guard's startup funds. As such, Ouyang Shua's expenses could be said to be astonishing. Helpless, Ouyang Shua could only use the 200,000 gold coins gold note that Binger had drawn. Thankfully, with the financial revenue in February and a cooperation in Ouyang Shua's rules, he could obtain a large sum of funds in a short period of time. When the funds flowed, Ouyang Shua could fill in the funds. After all, Binger's 200,000 gold coins were used to build Cliff Mountain City. Ouyang Shua would not use it easily. After the discussion, the black mamba snake did not stay in Shanghai City and immediately returned to Jianye. Following that, the disbandment and relocation of the mercenary group would be carried out by the black mamba snake. After the black mamba snake left, Ouyang Shua found Tao Wu and the rest. Tao Wu's Wanshi County was located in the capital region. Ouyang Shua wanted to understand Di Chen's latest movements through Tao Wu. According to Tao Wu, after the Battle of Lianzhou, Di Chen suddenly accelerated the pace of annexation of the surrounding territories. In less than 2 months, the basin where Handan County was located and the rest of the players' territories were almost swept clean. They either surrendered or were eradicated. Although Handan County was not promoted to a county city, it had achieved the same strategic goal as Shanghai City. Ouyang Shua raised his eyebrows when he heard this. Sure enough, the foundation of the aristocratic families was really beyond imagination. Di Chen and the rest had probably started to make arrangements from the moment they chose the location to build the village. Today's operation was just to pull in the net ahead of time. Di Chen might have also realized that since his territory had no hope of becoming a county city in the near future, he had to carry out the annexation of the territory if he did not want to be left far behind by Shanghai City. Of course, if Di Chen did not have the fusion token, such a radical annexation strategy would still have some hidden dangers. For example, in the future population base of the basin, he would suffer a lot. To Di Chen, in order to consolidate his position, this hidden danger was still acceptable. After all, these big forces still had considerable influence and dominance among the players. At worst, they could bring in a large number of players to settle in their territory. To be continued. Chapter 365. Unlike Ouyang Shua, Di Chen and the others were much better at controlling players. The various major powers all had their own set of methods to manage their players. In reality, their families and teams were experts in management. Naturally, there were no obstacles when it came to transplanting it into the game. Hence, Di Chen and the others didn't have to treat the players cautiously like Ouyang Shua and constantly be on guard against betrayal and subversion. Instead, they could do whatever they wanted. From Di Chen's actions, it wasn't hard to infer that War Wolf and the others must have done something similar. The Yan-Huang alliance had suffered a great loss in the Battle of Lianzhou, so they had to make up for it elsewhere. As the Yan-Huang alliance suffered defeat after defeat, their foundation was slowly revealed. To Ouyang Shua, the unknown Yan-Huang alliance was the most terrifying thing. Ouyang Shua had no idea how many trump cards the Yan-Huang alliance still had. This information would be investigated by the Black Snake Guard that was about to be formed. As his status rose, Ouyang Shua's views also changed. Ouyang Shua had also become more confident in dealing with the players. Lianzhou County was their headquarters, so Ouyang Shua was naturally very cautious. But in Jingzhou Island, Ouyang Shua could implement a more open policy. Leading the three major guilds into the cliff state was Ouyang Shua's first step. In the future, Ouyang Shua would guide more players to settle in the cliff state. After all, relying on the immigrants from Shanghai City alone was not enough to satisfy the development of Cliff State. Cliff Mountain City was limited by Binger's title, and the number of refugees was limited. It was like trying to put out a burning cart of firewood with a cup of water. Outside Cliff State, there was a vast expanse of land waiting for Ouyang Shua to reclaim and use. These pieces of land were all precious treasures. After talking with Lao Ai, Ouyang Shua went to find his brother-in-law, Songwen. Tianshuang County was located in Lingnan. Ouyang Shua was interested in Lingnan. Therefore, he had to plan ahead. Tianshuang County was undoubtedly a better choice. After all, regardless of whether it was a common interest or a relationship bond, there was a certain level of trust between the two. What do you think about Lingnan, big brother? As an economically important province, the local tyrants of Lingnan were not to be underestimated. The four consortiums represented by the Song family and the Ruan family were only experts in the economic field. They weren't the ones who were the real decision-makers. For the time being, the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom was only wreaking havoc in Guangxi, which was a great advantage for Lingnan. Taking advantage of this gap in time, the lords of Southridge hastened the pace of forming an alliance. Ouyang Shua didn't know the specifics. He only remembered that in his past life, the four consortiums did not have much influence in Lingnan region. The leader of the Lingnan region was the Southern Alliance. The leader was called Hefo, and he was also a descendant of an aristocratic family. Songwen was startled when he heard Ouyang Shua ask about Lingnan. For a moment, countless thoughts flashed through Songwen's mind. He was trying to figure out the intention behind Ouyang Shua's question. On the surface, Songwen's expression was calm as he slowly said, "I have some understanding of the situation in Lingnan. Tell me about it." The four consortiums are now divided into two factions. The Zhou family is close to our Song family, while the Zhao family is entangled with the Ruan family and gradually drifting away from our Song family. Ouyang Shua remained silent. He was the root cause of the four consortiums split. Because of his existence, the marriage plan between the Ruan and Song families had been aborted early on. Not only that, but they had also become enemies. That's not the scariest part. The Lingnan region has already formed an alliance called the Southern Alliance. In order to fight against our Song family, Ruan Ping has already joined the Southern Alliance. Songwen's heart was heavy as he said this. Obviously, Tianshuang County's situation in Lingnan was not good. Because Tianshuang County belonged to the Mountain and Sea Alliance, the local powers in Lingnan would naturally reject Tianshuang County. Ouyang Shua smiled when he heard this. It seemed that Ruan Ping's temper had not calmed down yet. Did he join the Southern Alliance to gain the ability to fight against me? Ouyang Shua didn't care about this. Ouyang Shua frowned at Tianshuang County's situation. This brother-in-law of his was elegant, but he lacked a domineering aura that said, "If not me, then who?" Tianshuang County's current passive situation was not unrelated to Song Wen's lack of initiative. Ouyang Shua had indirectly interacted with the Song family a few times. The impression he got was that these businessmen were keen on scheming, but they lacked boldness and courage. They treated their territory like a company. How could they succeed? This was also the reason why Lord Chunshan was repeatedly suppressed by Di Chun. Although Di Chun had made a series of mistakes in the early days, and his reputation had taken a hit, he was able to quickly regroup and make a comeback. Lord Chunshan couldn't do it. After the Battle of Lian Province, he would probably need a long time to recover. The status of a member of the Mountain and Sea Alliance should not be a hindrance to the development of the territory. On the contrary, if used well, it could become a powerful weapon. In this aspect, Feng Qiuhuang had undoubtedly used the advantage of the alliance to the extreme. She relied on the Mountain and Sea Alliance, and under the framework of the alliance, established a regional alliance, the Mountain and Sea Alliance Phoenix Alliance. In this way, the territory that joined the Mountain and Sea Alliance Phoenix Alliance would be under the protection of Luofeng City, and would also be under the protection of the Mountain and Sea Alliance. Ouyang Shua approved of Feng Qiuhuang's actions. Ouyang Shua hoped that the members of the alliance, while maintaining the Mountain and Sea Alliance, could gradually exert more influence in the territory. With the territory as the core, it would radiate to the China region. Only by doing this, could the Mountain and Sea Alliance gradually strengthen the foundation and form a large network. Could the Mountain and Sea Alliance not be at a disadvantage in the future confrontation with the Yan-Huang Alliance? Compared to Feng Qiuhuang, Song-Wen was too weak. Ouyang Shua told Song-Wen about Feng Qiuhuang's actions and said, "Big brother, don't worry, just do it boldly. I don't believe that the Lord of the Mountain and Sea Alliance and the Southern Alliance can't see the situation clearly." Ouyang Shua's words were tactful. In truth, he was reminding Song-Wen that if he continued to be so cautious and indecisive, not only would he be isolated, even the Song family's current ally, the Zhou family, would be pressured into joining the Southern Alliance. At that time, the Song family would really be isolated. Hearing this, Song-Wen looked embarrassed. "Don't worry, I know what to do." Ouyang Shua nodded. After all, Song-Wen was his brother-in-law, and he could not lecture him too much. Of course, Ouyang Shua did not really leave Tianchuan County alone. He promised that the Mountain and Sea City would support the development of Tianchuan County through the Bank of the Four Seas. Ouyang Shua hoped that Song-Wen could stand out and show the name of the Mountain and Sea Alliance, and unite the surrounding Lord-level players to fight against the Southern Alliance. He did not wish for an uncontrollable tyrant to appear in Lingnan. If the conditions allowed, after stabilizing the Cliff Province, and if the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom had not invaded the Mulan Fortress, the Mountain and Sea City would first attack Lingnan. Their primary goal was to occupy the Thunder Province, which was across the sea from Jingzhou Island. Jingzhou Island was already Ouyang Shua's exclusive property, and he naturally did not wish for other lords to use Thunder Province as a springboard to interfere in Jingzhou Island's affairs. After chatting with Song-Wen, Ouyang Shua did not look for other members to talk privately. At 5 in the afternoon, the ladies returned from North Sea City. At night, Ouyang Shua held a banquet in the Marquis Mansion. There was even a song and dance performance. After the meal, Ouyang Shua invited everyone to the backyard garden for a bonfire party. Ouyang Shua's series of arrangements were to deepen the relationship between the members. He hoped that the members of the Mountain and Sea Alliance would not only be business partners, but also brothers and sisters. Not only would they help each other in the game, but they would also work together on the future Hope Planet. Among the members, especially the lords, who had been interacting with NPCs for a long time, they could not help but feel depressed. Bai Hua, Feng Qiuhuang, and the others were fine, as they had close friends and sisters by their side. On the other hand, Baian and Dragon seeking acupuncture points were very lonely. It was because of this experience that Baian and Dragon seeking acupuncture points were able to quickly become close friends. After all, which member of the Mountain and Dragon seeking acupuncture points were not under a lot of pressure? Being a lord was not as glorious as it seemed to outsiders. The pressure they were under was unimaginable for adventure-type players. Even the Siege Lion, who seemed to be getting more and more out of tune, was actually using a certain method to release the pressure in their hearts. Otherwise, Zhu Xing would not have set up such a trap and put on an act. Because of this, Ouyang Shua emphasized on face-to-face communication between the members. Just relying on the Alliance channel was not going to help. Moreover, the Alliance channel was a public channel, and it was not appropriate to talk about private matters. The bright moon hung high in the sky, and the night was bright and warm. In an empty space in the garden, a huge bonfire was lit. The 19 youths sat in a circle, drinking and chatting together. They were very comfortable. When she was in the mood, Violet took advantage of the alcohol and started to dance a classical dance around the bonfire. The sexy and graceful dance, coupled with the charm of the classical dance, was really pleasing to the eye. The charm of the purple demon was completely released, and it was irresistible. For a moment it attracted a series of cheers. "Nice! Sister Violet, you dance so well. Beautiful!" Siege Lion and Fat Tiger, the two perverts, even whistled, exclaiming that this trip was not in vain. Under Violet's lead, the atmosphere of the bonfire party became more and more lively. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the only couple among the group naturally received the attention of everyone. Under everyone's jeering, Moon Illuminates the River licked her face and invited Red Eagle to dance with her. Red Eagle was also a forthright girl. She was not shy in the crowd's jeering and generously accepted Moon Illuminates the River's invitation. As a result, the atmosphere of the party was directly brought to the peak. A group of youths sang and danced around the bonfire. At this moment they were not lords, nor were they the leaders of the guilds, but a group of youths chasing their dreams. To be continued. Chapter 366. The next day, the members left one by one. Before they left, Ouyang Shua prepared a small gift. Ouyang Shua hoped that similar conferences could become a routine and institutional arrangement. Next year's conference did not have to be held in Shanghai City. The conference could be held in another member's territory. The members took turns to be the host. Only Xie Xiun and Lin Jing stayed after the members left. Shanghai City and Snow Rose still had a big business deal to do. With the reorganization of the Dragon and Tiger Legions, the army eliminated a large number of outdated weapons and equipment. In addition to the weapons and equipment that were cleared from the battlefield during the Battle of Lianzhou, there was a mountain of weapons and equipment. According to the statistics of the Combat Readiness Department, they had sorted out more than 100,000 weapons and 90,000 sets of armor. Even if this batch of equipment was sold for 1 gold coin each, it would be worth 200,000 gold coins. Needless to say, some of the weapons and equipment were of high quality. A rough estimate of the value of this batch of weapons and equipment would not be lower than 300,000 gold coins. As the main distributor of Shanghai City, Snow Rose would naturally make a lot of money. Because the amount was too large, Snow Rose would only take 5% of the profits. This way, Ouyang Shua could earn close to 300,000 gold coins just by selling this batch of equipment. In fact, this amount of money was actually the profits of the 4 major military workshops. This was because the obsolete equipment in the army needed to be replaced with better equipment. Better equipment did not appear out of thin air. It was manufactured by the 4 major military workshops. The military industry began to shine and became the most profitable industry in the territory. It was because of this amount of money that Ouyang Shua was confident in incorporating the Rattlesnake mercenary group. Ouyang Shua had already instructed the finance department to not keep a single gold coin for the revenue of February. All of it was to be transferred to the territory's construction. With the establishment of Lianzhou County, a few large projects started at the same time. The construction of Shanghai City's outer city, Fort Mulan, road network, and Blessed City were rated by the construction department as the 4 major projects in the territory. The cost of each project was no less than 20,000 to 30,000 gold coins. Among them, the construction of Shanghai City's outer city was a bottomless pit. According to Wei Ran, it would take at least a year to complete the framework of this unprecedented city. The completed Shanghai City was estimated to be able to accommodate at least 5 million citizens. The government's investment was mainly in the construction of infrastructure and public facilities, including the city roads, municipal water supply and drainage, ports, distribution centers, bridges, parks, temples, bell towers, schools, and so on. According to estimates, the cost of this piece alone was no less than 200,000 gold coins. The Marquis Manor would transfer a portion of the funds, while the Mountain Sea Prefecture would have to raise the majority of the funds themselves. Wei Ran's method was to sell the land, sell the land, sell the land. Inspired by Wei Ran, the magistrate of the Blessed Abode, Shun Jue, decided to adopt a similar funding model when planning the construction of the Blessed Abode. Blessed City was divided into the Inner City and Outer City. The Inner City would be completely built by the government, and most of the land in the Outer City would be put up for auction. Among the four major projects, the Mulan Fortress and the road network would be fully funded by the Marquis' residents. Needless to say, the road network belonged to the public construction of Lianzhou County, so it should be paid for by the Lord's Manor. Mulan Fortress, on the other hand, was purely a military fortress. Naturally, it would not allow private funds to flow in or participate in it. According to estimates, the main road network would take half a year to complete, and the construction budget would be 100,000 gold coins. Mulan Fortress would take another 3 months to complete, and the total construction cost would be 70,000 gold coins. Basically, more than half a year of Lianzhou County's revenue would be invested into the territory's construction. If the other medium-sized projects and the huge military expenditure were taken into account, Ouyang Shuo would not be able to keep a single gold coin from the territory's revenue in the second year of Gaia. Ouyang Shuo might even have to think of ways to raise money to support the territory's finances. The second year of Gaia would be the construction year of Lianzhou County, and it was also the most crucial year. Ouyang Shuo looked forward to the economic boom of the completed Lianzhou County, and it would become the strongest and most trustworthy backing for the territory's expansion. That afternoon, Ouyang Shuo personally summoned Du Ruhui, Cobra, Viper, and the 3 heads of the military intelligence in his study to announce the relevant personnel appointments. Song San stepped down from his position as the director of the military intelligence and became the deputy director as well as the special operations team leader. Cobra left the special operations training base and officially became the director of the military intelligence. Ouyang Shuo's arrangement was to restrain Cobra within the military intelligence. The leaders of the 3 teams under the military intelligence were Ouyang Shuo's absolute confidants. Cobra wanted to start a new career in the military intelligence, but it was impossible. Even if Rattlesnake's members joined the military intelligence in the future, their positions would only be below the 3 leaders. The establishment of the military intelligence was personally approved by Ouyang Shuo. For the time being, there would only be 3 teams, and they would not be allowed to expand in the short term. During this period of time, Ouyang Shuo hoped that Song San, Ling Qian, and Lei Sun could quickly grow under Cobra's guidance and become true giant. In this way, the military intelligence would still be under Ouyang Shuo's absolute control. At this point, the 4 departments under the military intelligence were basically complete, except for the military law department. The director of military law department could only be held by Director Du Ruhui for the time being. Be it the operations division led by Zhao Kuo, the combat readiness division led by Gu Hongliang, or the military intelligence division led by Cobra, they were all worthy of Ouyang Shuo's trust in their abilities. Ever since Du Ruhui took over, the military intelligence had expanded to more than 4 times its previous size, becoming the most important department among the 4. Other than Cobra, another member, Viper, would officially become the chief instructor of the Special Operations Training Base, and his position and treatment would be equivalent to that of a brigade marshal in the military. Under the chief instructor, there would be 5 deputy chief instructors and a battalion commander. The Special Operations Training Base would also become a permanent organization in the military, directly under the jurisdiction of the military intelligence, and would continuously train scouts and special forces for the military. The 27th, the 7th of the first month, the Black Mamba led the members of the Rattlesnake mercenary group and their families to Shanghai City. On that day, more than 550 members chose their respective places to go. The final result was that 113 people would enter the military intelligence as spies, and 45 people would enter the Special Operations Training Base as deputy chief instructors and instructors. 7 of them would become the platoon leaders of the Scouts, and 15 would enter the Army as battalion commanders. One of the 5 corps members, a man named Krite, was given the position of brigade marshal by Ouyang Shua and entered the Dragon Xiang Legion. The remaining 370 people would all enter the Black Snake Guards and build the skeleton of the Black Snake Guard. In 2 days, the Black Mamba had already sorted out the basic structure of the Black Snake Guards and reported to Ouyang Shua. The headquarters of the Black Snake Guards would be set up in an inconspicuous courtyard in the Shanghai city's official residence district, and it would be mainly responsible for organizing intelligence, analyzing intelligence, and interrogating important targets. The Black Snake Guards would personally oversee the headquarters and coordinate the work of the major intelligence stations. The intelligence stations in the 9 royal cities would each have a commander in charge of the region's intelligence work. The Black Snake Guards would all use codenames. Other than the leader, the 9 commanders' codenames were Red Snake, Orange Snake, Yellow Snake, Green Snake, Blue Snake, Purple Snake, White Snake, and Ink Snake. The rest of the members were divided into the Black Guard and the Snake Guard. The Black Guard mainly used force to arrest people, similar to the Special Operations Team of the Military Intelligence Department. The Snake Guard mainly disguised themselves and secretly gathered intelligence, similar to the Military Intelligence Team 1 and 2. The Black Guard and Snake Guard each had a commander codenamed Black Guard 1 and Snake Guard 1. The members under them would be arranged according to their serial numbers. The 2 commanders were the last 2 out of the 5 corps members. The commander of the Black Guard was called the White-Browed Viper, and the commander of the Snake Guard was called Bamboo Leaf Emerald. What surprised Ouyang Shua was that Bamboo Leaf Emerald was actually a woman, a delicate and pretty girl. But from the gazes of the other members of the Black Snake Guards when they looked at Bamboo Leaf Emerald, besides fear, there was not a trace of love. From this it could be seen how extraordinary Bamboo Leaf Emerald was. Delicate and pretty, but it was only the appearance of Bamboo Leaf Emerald. The status of the 2 commanders was below the leader, the Black Snake Guards, and above the 9 commanders. Ouyang Shua was very satisfied with the efficiency of the Black Snake Guards. That afternoon, Ouyang Shua distributed the settlement fees and the funds of the Black Snake Guards in one go. The Black Snake Guards officially began to operate. Other than Ouyang Shua, there were only 4 bureau chiefs in the territory who knew of the existence of the Black Snake Guards. This mysterious organization did not have any unveiling ceremony. Even the small courtyard of the headquarters didn't have a plaque. There was only a locust tree planted in front of the courtyard. In the future, this unremarkable small courtyard would shock and terrify the world with the name Scholartree Manor. February 28th, the 8th day of the first month. The inventory of the weapons and equipment that had been eliminated temporarily came to an end. Next, Snow Rose arranged for members to use storage pouches to transport the equipment back to Jianya for sale. Xie Xiun and Lin Jing left Shanghai City. After sending off Xie Xiun and Little Ant, Ouyang Shua began to patrol Lianzhou County. He would lead a team of personal guards from the western suburbs of Shanghai City, passing through Yongye County and Guangshui County to Tianfeng City, and then turn north to patrol Blessed by God's Manor. After that, he would continue north to patrol Mulan Mansion and Mulan Fortress. After leaving Mulan Mansion, he would turn south to Duanren City, pass through Yishui County and Gushan County, and finally return to Shanghai City. The entire patrol would take at least 25 days. At the same time, it also meant that when the elite squads of the 3 major guilds arrived at Cliff State, Ouyang Shua would not be able to appear in Cliff Mountain City. Ouyang Shua had already sent a letter to Sun Xiaoye, asking her to represent him and be in charge of receiving the 3 elite squads. Sun Xiaoye returned to Shanghai City to have a reunion dinner with her family on New Year's Eve. On the first day of the first month, she had already rushed back to Cliff Mountain City to preside over the construction work. To be continued. Chapter 367. While the Mountain and Sea Alliance was holding their conference, the Yan-Huang Alliance was also making their move. Capital District, Handan County. Second brother's appetite is not small at all. Di Chen was leaning against the window, his posture tall and straight, but his expression was a little lonely. Outside the window, the white snow covered the land, and the land was clean and white. The heavy snow last night had covered up the dirt of the world, and made the land spotless. You agreed to him? Peerless Elegance was wearing a white fur coat, sitting by the window, holding a cup of hot tea in his hand, his expression calm. The hot tea gave off steam, forming a thin layer of smoke in the air. Under the light smoke, Peerless Elegance was like a celestial being, extraordinary and refined. Agreed to him? How is that possible? Di Chen smiled coldly. I worked hard to build up Handan County. My second brother, on the other hand, was just watching from the sidelines. Now that we've suffered a setback, he wants to seize power. How naive. After venting his dissatisfaction, Di Chen let out a long sigh. Grandpa is very disappointed in me. Di Chen's words did not seem to match, but it made Peerless Elegance silent. Thinking of that kind-looking old man, her calm face couldn't help but twitch, as if she was thinking of something unpleasant. Actually, it's not just second brother who's restless. This time, we were able to successfully unify the Xianhua Basin. If you say there's nothing fishy going on, I won't believe it even if you beat me to death. Di Chen could see the current situation very clearly, and he knew his brothers and sisters very well. Peerless Elegance was startled. What are you going to do? Di Chen laughed coldly. They think they're doing it secretly, but they don't know that I'm also beating them at their own game. When that time comes, it'll be like drawing water with a sieve, and they'll be crying. Peerless Elegance raised an eyebrow, but didn't reply. The current Di Chen was getting more and more shrewd, and sometimes even Peerless Elegance couldn't figure out his thoughts. The dragon must soar, and the dragon must soar. Di Chen looked up at the sky outside the window, and said in a low voice, How can there be no clothes? Just you wait, our battle is far from over. Xiangyang District, Danyang District. Unlike Di Chen's brothers and sisters, Lord Chunshin had long since established himself as the sole successor of the clan. His operation to sweep through the Jingzhou had progressed extremely smoothly. Even so, Lord Chunshin still could not feel happy. Based on the family's tradition, those who cooperated with Lord Chunshin in managing the surrounding territories were all members of the family's branch family, or some members of the direct line of descent who were unsuccessful. The true elites of the clan were all hidden in the various king cities. They used their family's capital and business resources to set up merchant guilds in the various king cities, and did very well. According to the rules, the major chambers of commerce had to hand over 30% of their profits to Danyang County every month to support the development of the main base. This kind of institutional arrangement was also the fundamental reason why Lord Chunshin had so much money in his hands. However, following the end of the Lianzhou battle, Lord Chunshin's terrible performance caused his prestige to suffer a serious setback. His ability was also questioned by all sides of the family. Some chambers of commerce had already begun to falsify accounts under the hints of their masters in an attempt to reduce the profits on their books in order to achieve the goal of reducing the offerings. They're hitting us when we're down. Lord Chunshin flew into a rage after listening to the chief steward's report, smashing the teacup in his hand to pieces. Danyang County had suffered heavy casualties in the Lianzhou battle and needed a large sum of money to rebuild the army. At this time, his brothers and sisters wanted to reduce the offerings. How could Lord Chunshin not be angry? Young master, please calm down. The chief steward's heart trembled. He hurriedly ordered the servants to clean up the floor. Lord Chunshin's expression was gloomy. Gnashing his teeth, he said, Since they are heartless, don't blame me for being unjust. Young master, what brilliant plan do you have? The chief steward played the role of a lackey appropriately. I want to see father and expose their shameful deeds. Lord Chuanshin's greatest reliance was his father's absolute support. Not only that, I want to send auditors to check the accounts of the major chambers of commerce. The chief steward timely added, it would be best if there were permanent auditors to monitor their accounts. In this way, the major chambers of commerce would be like a fishbone stuck in their throat. They could no longer hide their accounts. Not bad, this is a good idea. Lord Chunshin looked appreciatively at the chief steward. He thought to himself, it seems that my heart is not ruthless enough. In the past, I was a little too lenient towards these brothers and sisters. Young master, to tell you the truth, even if the major chambers of commerce pay the full amount of offerings, there is still a shortfall in funds. It will be very difficult for the territory to recover in a short period of time. Although the chief steward was a lackey, he was a very capable lackey. Otherwise, Lord Chunshin would not have trusted him so much and always relied on him as a confidant. Lord Chunshin frowned and said, how much more? Hearing this, the chief steward stretched out his palm and said, there is a shortfall of at least 50,000 gold coins. 50,000? Are you sure you did not make a mistake? Lord Chunshin was shocked. There is no mistake. I have calculated it repeatedly. The chief steward solemnly vowed and spoke with sincerity. Of course, he would not tell Lord Chunshin that for every offering the chambers of commerce paid, he, as the chief steward, had to go through it and take advantage of it. I understand. You may leave. Lord Chunshin waved his hand, his expression grave. Yes. The chief steward stood up and took his leave. Lord Chunshin stayed alone in his study, but he was struggling in his heart. He was weighing the pros and cons. If he proposed to his father to raise the ratio of profits paid by the major chambers of commerce to 40%, would it be acceptable? Although his father absolutely supported him, he could not ignore the existence of his other uncles. However, the huge shortfall in funds forced Lord Chunshin to take the risk out of desperation. I don't care any more. A trace of viciousness flashed across Lord Chuanshin's face. He stood up and left the study. Brothers and sisters, this time, I will let you lift a rock to smash your own feet. Lord Chuanshin's expression was sinister. Also, how can I say I have no clothes? The blood feud is as deep as the sea, and we cannot live under the same sky. Jianyi District, Qi Shui District. If one were to say who had lost the most face in the Battle of Lian Province, it would definitely be the war wolf. Although Lord Chuanshin's defeat was unsightly, the one who had truly formulated the battle plan was the Qi Shui District. Half of the responsibility for the defeat of Lian Province had to be borne by the Qi Shui District. As the representative of the Qi Shui District, the war wolf naturally could not escape the blame. At the last moment, if not for Di Chen's rescue, he, the war wolf, would have suffered the same fate as Sha Poen died. His subordinate general, Zhao Zhuang, was able to reunite with Zhao Kuo. After the battle, the war wolf locked himself in the study and did not come out for several days. Even the command of the army to unify Qinghe province was accomplished by the three generals, Blood Wolf, Vicious Wolf, and Ghost Wolf. Bai Qi had taught the middle-aged general next to the war wolf a good lesson. How should one fight a war with cold weapons? The defeat of the Allied forces was due to their arrogance and underestimation of the enemy. If they had joined forces with the Grassland Army from the beginning and directly besieged Shanghai City with the momentum of a thunderbolt, they might have had a chance of winning. In the end, they watched helplessly as the Allied forces of the Grassland were gradually nibbled away before they slowly made their appearance. They divided their forces into two groups, but neither group was successful. Sometimes, having a big appetite was not a good thing. They were arrogant and underestimated the enemy. They had underestimated Shanghai City's infiltration and surveillance of Lianzhou Basin. As a result, as soon as the Allied forces appeared, they were discovered by Shanghai City's spies, which directly caused the opportunity to besiege them to be stillborn. They had also underestimated the combat power of the elite troops of Shanghai City. In the Battle of Gushan County, Shanghai City showed the Allied forces what an elite force was. All of this made the war wolf feel ashamed. It was not until the end of the year that the war wolf walked out of the shadow of war. A fall into the pit, a gain in your wit. The defeat of Lianzhou was not necessarily a bad thing for the war wolf. The current war wolf had become more pragmatic. He chose to lie low and concentrate on training a true elite army. Next time, he would compete with Shanghai City. The elite division trained by the war wolf would all be equipped with chainmail, and the soldiers would all be retired soldiers who had changed professions to generals. They would be disciplined and orderly in battle. The name of this army was Red Blood. Chuanzhou District, Bawang County. Xiongba had escaped in the Battle of Lianzhou. Other than losing some ordinary soldiers, Bawang County did not suffer any major losses. The strength of Bawang County had long recovered and even improved. Similarly, Bawang County had completed the unification of Chu Prefecture. Everything had its pros and cons. There was a price to pay for doing something. The price that Xiongba paid was to be suspected by the alliance, and Lord Chunshan was the worst. The close working relationship between him and Lord Chunshan had completely disappeared. When the alliance met, Lord Chunshan directly frowned at Xiongba and ignored him. The relationship between the two instantly fell to a freezing point. Xiongba did not mind this, because he was an ambitious person. Taking advantage of the depression of the Yan-Huang alliance, Xiongba finally revealed his claws and teeth. He joined forces with Wandering Huan, who was also unharmed, to establish his own mountain and become the third pole of the Yan-Huang alliance. Xiongba officially got rid of the shadow of Lord Chunshan and began to exert greater influence in the Yan-Huang alliance. The competition between him and Di Chen also began to enter a white-hot stage. If it was said that between Xiongba and Lord Chunshan there would be a day when they could reconcile, then between him and Di Chen there was really a natural enmity. This enmity was not only limited to Xiongba and Di Chen, but it was a confrontation between the two families. Because of this, although Xiongba had suffered a defeat in the Battle of Lianzhou, his position in the family did not fall, but instead rose. This was because the family saw that in the competition with the Di family, there was hope of winning. The other three members of the Yan-Huang alliance were not lying low, but were really quiet. Military Kill Ripper had suffered a great loss, and had become mortal enemies with Wandering Huan. Moreover, their territories were both in the Xianyang district. This was going to be a good show. The last member of the Yan-Huang alliance, Feng Tianlai, was still at the stage of being a bystander, not worth mentioning. To be continued. Chapter 368. P.S. 571542584. The author has hand-drawn maps of China and Lianzhou County in the group. You can check them out if you're interested. Gaia Year 2, March 1st, Cliff Mountain City. The three elite groups of Snow Death Rose Mercenary Group, Breeze Pavilion and Listen to the Rain Tower, totaling 1,500 elite players, were teleported to Cliff Mountain City. After the three guilds formed an alliance, they had a tacit understanding. The elite group of Snow Rose Mercenary Group was personally led by Lin Jing, and the other two guilds were led by the leaders of their elite group. This arrangement was equivalent to acknowledging the leadership of Snow Rose Mercenary Group. Sun Xiaoye came out to receive the three elite group. They would rent a courtyard in Cliff Mountain City as a foothold and supply point. For the elite groups, there were two places to explore. One was the secret realm of Nanshan Mountain, which was also the focus of the elite group's exploration. Although Nanshan Mountain Cave could be explored repeatedly, there would be extra rewards for clearing it for the first time. The system would also make an announcement, which was a very rare opportunity to promote the guild. There was only one Nanshan Mountain Cave, but there were 3 guilds which required coordination. Lin Jing came out and gathered the 3 leaders for a discussion. The result of the discussion was that the 3 guilds would take turns exploring in the order of Snow Rose Mercenary Group, Breeze Pavilion, and Tower of the Rain. Who could get the first clear reward would depend on their own abilities. Although Snow Rose Mercenary Group was the first to explore, they didn't have any advantages. According to the information disclosed by Evil Mercenary Group, if a player died while exploring the secret realm, they could reincarnate without any losses. However, after reincarnation, they couldn't enter the secret realm again. They had to wait for the next opportunity. At the same time, a player could reincarnate without any losses in the same secret realm up to 3 times. If they died after 3 times, they would be reincarnated for real, and their level would be reset to 0. Gaia's arrangement wasn't out of mercy, but because the exploration of the secret realm was very difficult. It was almost impossible to clear the secret realm on the first try. It was reported that Evil Mercenary Group spent 1.5 months exploring the secret realm. They went through 5 waves of people and died more than 2,000 times before they barely cleared the secret realm. The greater the gain, the greater the risk. It turned out that Bloody Romance's gain was more than enough to make up for the loss. At the same time, different mystic realms also had a limit on the number of people who could enter. The maximum number of people in the South Mountain Grotto Heaven was 100. Therefore, an elite team could be divided into 5 teams and take turns to explore. According to the type of secret realm, the number of times it could be opened was also different. The Fortuitous Encounter secret realm could only be explored once. Regardless of whether one managed to clear it or not, the Fortuitous Encounter secret realm would disappear upon completion. The scroll could be explored once a day until the stage was cleared. After clearing the stage, it would disappear. The public secret realm would be opened once a day in the morning and once in the afternoon, and it would never disappear. The Nanshan Mystic Realm was a public mystic realm that opened twice a day. There were 3 elite groups and 15 teams. Basically, it would only be their turn once a week. Even so, there was still one team that had to skip. Therefore, when they were not exploring the Arcane Realm, they had to go to the second pioneering land, the 5 Fingers Mountain. The elite team's target was naturally not the ordinary wild beasts, but the desolate beasts that filled the 5 Fingers Mountain. This way, not only could they level up, but they could also obtain high-grade materials. If he was lucky, he might even obtain a desolate beast's inner core. Apart from that, players could also use contract scrolls to sign contracts with dire beasts. They could be used as pets, mounts, or battle partners. Therefore, the Cliff State was simply a paradise for the elite team. After the elite team rested, they prepared to go to the Nanshan Grotto Heaven for the first exploration. The day before the elite team arrived, the 3rd batch of immigrants had already set off from the North Sea port. The main force of the immigrants was 10,000 farmers who were transferred from all over Lianzhou County. Their mission was to reclaim the wasteland. The Cliff Mountain City had to complete the reclamation of the wasteland before the Qingming Festival so that the first season of rice would not be delayed. Accompanying them was the Tiger Troop. Apart from that, there were also hundreds of merchant ships. The establishment of the Cliff Mountain City was undoubtedly a boost to the confidence of the major chambers of commerce, especially when they heard that the Marquis of Lianzhou was going to send 2 elite divisions to guard the Cliff Mountain City. The chambers of commerce were even more relieved. The rich natural resources of the Cliff State had completely touched the sensitive nerves of the chambers of commerce, and they all increased their investment. The chambers of commerce bought large tracts of land in the Cliff Mountain City to build shops and various workshops. At the same time, they also rented large tracts of wasteland outside the city to reclaim farms. Therefore, the fleets of the chambers of commerce, in addition to all kinds of materials, also included a large number of laborers they recruited from the royal city. According to Ouyang Shua's request, the laborers of the chambers of commerce also had to be citizens of the Cliff Mountain City. As a result, the development of the Cliff Mountain City began to enter the fast lane. Due to Binger's noble status, Ouyang Shua's initial strategy to manage the Cliff Mountain City was to bring in a large number of immigrants. Only taking people from Lianzhou County was somewhat like robbing Peter to pay Peter. The third batch of immigrants was the last batch of support for the Cliff Mountain City from Lianzhou County. As for the rest of the population, they had to think of other ways, such as guiding the chambers of commerce to bring in a large number of laborers, guiding adventurer players, or targeting the natives of Jingzhou Island. In short, Ouyang Shua would never allow the Cliff Mountain City to develop step by step. With the strong support of Lianzhou County, the Cliff Mountain City was destined to take a completely different path of rapid development from Lianzhou County. In March, Ouyang Shua was patrolling Lianzhou County while the Cliff Mountain City quietly developed. For the entire March, the other Lord-class players were also unusually quiet. After the Battle of Lianzhou County, the Yan-Huang Alliance completely went into hiding, silently accumulating strength. After achieving their goal, the members of the Mountain and Sea Alliance also began to restrain themselves and began to digest the results of the war. The territorial wars in the China region caused by the Battle of Lianzhou County had completely stopped, and the wilderness had once again regained its peace. The rest of the Lord-class players were going through the integration of the regional alliances. Therefore, the wilderness was unusually quiet. Of course, the four major rebel armies were still expanding as usual. They were like a swarm of locusts in the wilderness, sweeping across the wilderness. In the midst of the silence, the only explosive news was that Lord Chunshan had been assassinated in Danyang County. A lord had been assassinated in his own territory. This was undoubtedly very sensational. For the various lords, it was extremely shocking. After the assassination, the various lords unanimously increased the number of guards around them. Even in their own territories, they did not dare to relax. To be assassinated in front of his subordinates and subjects was a huge blow to the prestige of the lords. What was even more strange was that the assassin did not seem to have any intention of hiding his identity. Less than 10 days after the assassination, Bloodshed publicly announced on the forum that they had planned and carried out the assassination. Taking this opportunity, Bloodshed began to publicly accept all kinds of assassination missions. The death of Lord Chunshan completely cemented Bloodshed's reputation. Compared to the Lord-class players, the Adventure-class players were much more active. The friction between the guilds continued to escalate. Small-scale guild wars would occur from time to time in the wilderness. As the guilds exerted their strength, it became increasingly difficult for players in small groups to survive. Due to the harsh death penalty, once a Lone Ranger died, not only would their level be reset to 0, they would not even be able to retrieve the set of equipment that they had painstakingly saved up. They were not like the guilds because they operated as a group. If they died, there would be team members to help collect the equipment. As for their levels, the guilds would arrange for people to help them level up, so they would recover very quickly. Lone Rangers were not good. Once they died, they would not be able to turn over a new leaf. The direct result was that a portion of the players who died would become disheartened and turn to life profession players. According to Gaia's settings, players who died in battle would have a chance to choose a new profession when they reincarnated. Of course, there was only one chance. The next time they reincarnated, they would not be able to change it. A portion of the players who died in battle would enter the embrace of the major guilds after reincarnation, relying on the remaining guild. Because of this, the major guilds absorbed a large amount of fresh blood, and the conflict further intensified. Jianghu began to be filled with killing. The color of blood began to spread among the adventure-type players. Affected by this, one of the 10 major guilds began to be in a difficult situation. It was a thread. As a pure life profession guild, a thread's combat power was almost 0. As the members' skill levels increased, they needed more and more rare materials. And these materials were almost monopolized by the major guild. The result was a thread's increasingly awkward situation. Of course, a thread was still very tempting. Whether it was the lords or the guilds, they all coveted a thread's skill talents. Some guilds even threatened a thread with rare materials, requesting to annex a thread. Among them, the most unyielding was crisscrossing sword aura, which was also from the capital. Rumor had it that under crisscrossing sword aura's strong pressure, a thread had already begun to lose members. At this moment, a dramatic scene happened. Star Alliance, which had set its headquarters in the capital, suddenly exerted its strength and announced its existence in a high-profile manner, gradually entering the players' field of vision. There were rumors that Star Alliance had also shown interest in a thread. Strangely, seeing Star Alliance make a move, crisscrossing sword aura began to retract. If there was no trick in this, he would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. Ouyang Shuo knew that this must be the result of Di Chen's mediation. For a time, Star Alliance's influence rose rapidly. Star Alliance also began to openly recruit members. Presumably, the secret family that Starja belonged to had finally decided to come out after a series of games and compromises. To be continued. Chapter 369. Star Alliance was not only interested in a thread. Rumor had it that Star Sage Dust was still pursuing the leader of a thread, Love Thread. Gossip about love made this matter even more eye-catching. For a while, the capital became the focus of adventure-type players. Ouyang Shuo also had thoughts about a thread. Previously, Ouyang Shuo had been recruiting potential life profession players through the Morning Snow Rose mercenary group. A thread was highly compatible with his needs. Ouyang Shuo was waiting for an opportunity. He had already ordered Black Snake to mobilize the power of the Black Snake Guards and pay close attention to the progress of the capital. Ouyang Shuo remembered that in his previous life, a thread was eventually suppressed by crisscrossing sword aura. The strange thing was that a thread did not join crisscrossing sword aura. Instead, it completely disappeared from the sight of the players. The whereabouts of the thread became a mystery. Rumor had it that a thread became disheartened and completely retired, becoming a casual player. As the month of March drew to a close, the footsteps of spring came slowly. With the breath of spring, everything began to recover, and the wilderness once again became full of vitality. Spring was the start of the year. For the lords, the spring sowing season had already quietly arrived. After experiencing an unforgettable food crisis, every lord did not dare to slack off. They personally supervised the spring sowing in their territories to ensure the harvest of the first half of the year. On the 25th of March, Ouyang Shuo ended his inspection of Lianzhou County and returned to Shanghai City. As soon as he returned, Meng Jida, the manager of the Bank of the Four Seas, came to find him. After a few months of preparation, the first batch of banknotes was finally printed. Meng Jida rushed over to hand over the banknotes to Ouyang Shuo for approval. Ouyang Shuo took a banknote with a face value of 100 gold coins from Meng Jida and examined it. In ancient times, there were only two colors, black and white. The banknote in front of him was slightly larger than the 100 yuan banknote in reality. The pattern on the back of the banknote was a panoramic view of the Lianzhou Basin, which was sampled from the geomancy map of Lianzhou. The front used the logo of the Lord's flag. Previously, Meng Jida suggested using Ouyang Shuo's portrait, but he rejected it. In addition to the quality of the printing, the key point was how to deal with the security of the banknote. Due to the limited conditions in ancient times, Meng Jida could only adopt a primitive method, which was to stamp the seal of the Marquis of Lianzhou on each banknote. The Lianzhou Marquis seal was the seal of the feudal vassals and could not be imitated. There was only one such seal in the world. Anyone who dares to imitate it will have their entire family exterminated. With Ouyang Shua's approval, the banknotes would be officially released on April 1st. Coincidentally, the equipment that he had given to Snow Rose to sell had also been sold out. In the end, Ouyang Shua obtained 286,700 gold coins. 130,000 gold coins were used to cover the cost of establishing the Blacksnake Guard. Ouyang Shua kept another 50,000 gold coins as backup, and the remaining 100,000 gold coins were all invested into the Bank of the Four Seas to support the issuance of paper money. It just so happened that Ouyang Shua also needed to increase his support for Tianshuang County through the Bank of the Four Seas. Although Song Wen's brother-in-law lacked boldness, he was very experienced when it came to handling matters. With Ouyang Shua's support, he officially established the Mountain and Sea Alliance Heavenly Frost Alliance in Lingnan to fight against the Southern Alliance. All of a sudden, the Lords of Southridge began a new round of selection. Of course, the leader of the Southern Alliance, Buddha He, was not someone easy to deal with. The confrontation between the two had just begun. Ouyang Shua naturally sat on the fishing platform and watched the storm in Lingnan. The next day, accompanied by Du Ruhui, Ouyang Shua attended the unveiling ceremony of the Military Force Lecture Hall. In fact, as early as a week ago, the Army Martial Arts Lecture Hall had already been completed. It was only because they were waiting for Ouyang Shua, the Lord and Honorary Principal of the Military Force Lecture Hall, that the unveiling ceremony was delayed until now. After the unveiling, a system announcement spread throughout the China server. System announcement. The representative of the School of the Military, War Saint Sun Wu, has settled down in the Shanhai territory to preside over the military lecture hall and accept disciples. At the same time, he has fulfilled the 3 requirements for a school to settle down in the Shanhai city. System announcement. The School of the Military of the 100 Schools of Thought has officially entered Shanhai City. Shanhai City will be given the title of Holy Land of the Military as a reward. Congratulations to player Don't Say You're Naked. The unveiling of the Land Army Martial Lecture Hall meant that the militarists now had a public dojo in Shanhai City. The first batch of students from the Land Army Martial Arts Hall had a total of 100 students, and they were divided into Class A and Class B. The students were all active duty officers recommended by the various divisions, which just happened to fulfill the 3rd condition for the guild to be stationed in the territory. With that, the School of the Military entering Shanhai City was naturally a matter of course. As soon as the announcement was made, the China server naturally became lively again. Fortunately, when the news of War Saint Sun Wu settling down in Shanhai City came out, the players already had a premonition that the School of the Military would be taken in by Shanhai City sooner or later, so they weren't too surprised. All they felt was envy. With this influence, the Military Force Lecture Hall also officially became famous in the China server. However, Ouyang Shua felt a little regretful. This was because the School of the Military wasn't one of the 10 schools of the 9 classes. The entry of the School of the Military wouldn't be of any help to the 100 schools of thought contend again mission that he had previously accepted. The 10 schools of thought referred to the School of Confucianism, School of Taoism, School of Moism, School of Legalism, School of Yin-Yang, School of Vertical and Horizontal, School of Miscellany, School of Agriculture, and School of Novels. The School of Novels of the 10 schools of thought belonged to the category of arts and literature. The School of the Military only appeared later. During the Spring and Autumn Warring States period, when hundreds of schools of thought contended, the School of the Military didn't form its own school. Therefore, the School of the Military wasn't included in the list of the 10 schools of the 9 classes. Ouyang Shua suppressed the regret in his heart and checked the attributes of the title, Holy Land of the Military. Holy Land of the Military. The leveling speed of soldiers increased by 10, the success rate of territorial generals breaking through bottlenecks increased by 10, the quality of territorial soldiers increased by 15, and the morale of territorial troops increased by 10. After checking the attributes, Ouyang Shua's regret immediately disappeared. The title, Holy Land of the Military, was simply a comprehensive upgrade for the territorial army. It was really too powerful. It could be foreseen that with the blessing of this title, the army would welcome a large number of mid-level generals in the future. Even high-level generals would no longer be an extravagant hope. Compared to this, the 100 schools of thought contend again was not important. Of course, if he completed the 100 schools of thought contend again, he would be rewarded with the title Holy Land of Culture. Its attributes would definitely be even more terrifying. Just thinking about it made him excited. 27th of March, Shanghai City. After the North Sea Fleet completed the escort mission of the third batch of immigrants, they had already returned to the North Sea port under Ouyang Shua's instructions. The scattered pirates around Jingzhou Island had already been wiped out by the North Sea Fleet. In addition, Cliff Mountain City had already established a foothold in the Cliff Province, so they naturally didn't need the protection of the North Sea Fleet. Even if they needed it, they would establish a new naval fleet in the Cliff Province. The North Sea Fleet's responsibility was still to protect North Sea City, guard the sea passes of Lianzhou County, and patrol the waters of the North Bay at the same time. Therefore, strictly speaking, the North Sea Fleet was a naval fleet that fought in the coastal waters. With the establishment of the Dragon Elephant Legion and the Tiger Brave Legion, the development of the territorial navy seemed to be lagging behind. There were two reasons for this. One was that the construction of the fortress ships required a period of time, and the other was the lack of naval generals. If the construction of the fortress ships could be solved with time, then the lack of naval generals was somewhat fatal and almost unsolvable. The current commander of the navy, Pei Donglai, was only a mid-level general. Whether it was experience or knowledge, it was really difficult for him to carry the flag of the navy. If they really forced him to do something beyond his capabilities, he would only be crushed by Pei Donglai. Previously, when Ouyang Shua was inspecting North Sea City, Pei Donglai had made a few suggestions on the development of the navy, which greatly touched Ouyang Shua. During this period, Ouyang Shua had taken the time to study some naval classics from the Ming and Qing dynasties. He had gradually developed a clearer idea about the construction of the territory's navy. Therefore, Ouyang Shua specially summoned Du Ruhui and Pei Donglai to discuss the construction of the territory's navy. The three of them discussed in Ouyang Shua's study for a whole day before deciding on the development plan of the territory's navy. At the same time, they made a fundamental change in the navy's current structure. According to the plan, the territory's navy would be divided into 4 levels: Navy, Fleet, Formation, and Navy Battalion. The Navy was equivalent to an army, the Fleet was equivalent to an army, and the Formation was equivalent to a division. The Nanyang Navy would be established to be responsible for the entire Southern Ocean's maritime operations. There would be a commander of the Navy, with the rank of Admiral. Under the Nanyang Navy, there would be a number of fleets based on the specific situation. The North Sea Fleet would be officially renamed the North Sea Bay Fleet, mainly responsible for the North Sea Bay's maritime operations. There would be a commander of the Navy. The North Sea Bay Fleet would belong to the Nanyang Navy. At the same time, they would also plan to establish the Cliff Mountain Fleet in Cliff Province. Different from the North Sea Bay Fleet, the future Cliff Mountain Fleet would mainly be responsible for the Southern Ocean's maritime operations. The North Sea Bay Fleet and the Cliff Mountain Fleet would be the two main fleets of the Nanyang Navy. The North Sea Bay Fleet would have 4 formations. The current North Sea Fleet would be reorganized into the North Sea Bay Fleet's first formation. There would be a commander of the Navy. The first formation would be divided into several Navy battalions, each with a battalion commander. The biggest difference between the Navy and the Army was that the Navy would be reduced to 1 brigade. Pei Donglai's position would also be officially established as the commander of the Nanyang Navy's North Sea Bay Fleet's first formation. The commander of the Navy and the commander of the Navy would be temporarily vacant. At the same time, a general plan was made for the fleet's warship structure. The most basic structure would be a Navy battalion, with at least one tower ship as the flagship, 4 Liao fighting ships as the main warships, and 12 Scarlet Horse boats as reconnaissance warship. Apart from the Scarlet Horse boats, each warship would have a captain, a first officer, a second officer, and a third officer. Because the Scarlet Horse boats were small, they were only responsible for reconnaissance and would only have one captain. At this point, the Shanghai City Navy could be considered to be on the right track. To be continued. Chapter 370. Completing the transformation of the Nanyang Navy's North Bay Fleet first formation was only the first step in the Navy's transformation. The next step was to find a Navy general. China's ancient top 10 Navy generals included Zhou Yu of the Three Kingdoms period, Lu Rengu of the Tang dynasty, Li Baohe and Zhang Hongfan of the Southern Song dynasty, Yu Tonghai of the late Yuan dynasty, Zheng He, Deng Zilong, Yu Dao and Zheng Qinggong of the Ming dynasty, and finally Shi Lang of the Qing dynasty. By the end of the Qing dynasty, Deng Shichang had already developed ironclad warship. Among the generals, the earliest Zhou Yu was a figure from the Three Kingdoms period. After the Battle of Chongping, the next was the Battle of Giant Deer. After the Battle of Giant Deer, the Qin dynasty just barely joined the history of the wilderness. There was still the Western Han dynasty in between the Three Kingdoms. Thus, it was basically impossible for Ouyang Shua to obtain any of them through normal methods. The only way was through the recruitment center or the summoning talisman. The recruitment center still had to wait for a year to cool down. As for the summoning talisman, not to mention that it was extremely difficult to find, even if one obtained one, how could one be so lucky as to summon a Navy general? Ouyang Shua was really at his wits' end. Ouyang Shua's strategy to build a powerful navy had a long way to go. What he could do was to actively prepare all kinds of warships, especially fortress ships. At the same time, he ordered Pei Donglai to continuously train sailors to prepare for the future expansion of the navy. The problem was, if the large-scale reserve of warships and sailors was not used for a long time, it would cause a waste of resources. It was not advisable. Thus, what Ouyang Shua could really do was really limited. He could only take it one step at a time. March 28. Black Snake found Ouyang Shua and reported the results of a month's work. After a month of careful preparation, the Black Snake Guard's various intelligence stations in the 9 capital cities had officially begun operations. The Black Snake Guard had more than 370 mercenaries as the core, and with the addition of NPC intelligence personnel from the various intelligence stations, the total number of members reached more than 500. In addition, the commanders of the various intelligence stations had also spent a large sum of money to set up a large number of informants in the capital, including street vendors, beggars, prostitutes, laborers at the docks, and so on. There was nothing that could not be found. Although they were inconspicuous, they could bring a lot of information to the Black Snake Guard. The next goal of the Black Snake Guards was to take down the maids and servants of the nobles, as well as the 2 hard bones of the gangs in the capital. This way, the Black Snake Guards basically established a complete intelligence network in the capital city. Of course, due to limited time, funds, and manpower, whether it was the spies that had already been planted or the targets that were prepared to act, they were all ordinary people. The real high-level spies still needed to be slowly infiltrated. Some of the spies had low statuses when they were first placed, so they were basically unable to obtain any important information. This required the cooperation of the Black Snake Guards to help them gradually rise. For example, a chosen beggar would be groomed to become the head of a certain area. A woman from a brothel wanted to make her a star. A coolie who helped him get a foothold on the dock. Wait. All in all, cultivating spies was a complicated and long-term job that could not be rushed. Only then would the spies nurtured step by step be truly loyal and reliable. They would also be the most precious resources of the Black Snake Guards in the future. As for the players, they were mainly concentrated in the two major areas of the guild and the territory. Needless to say, the guilds had planted spies in the various large guilds through either bribery or membership. They did not expect them to find out any important information, just a general understanding of the movements would be enough. Similarly, if they could help these spies improve their status in the guild, their value would be even greater. If they could break into the core leadership of the guild, it would be a true success. Unlike NPCs, there were hidden dangers in the loyalty of players. Therefore, some of the core guilds would be personally dispatched by the Snake Guards to join them and play a core role. Basically, the top 10 guilds of the major cities had Snake Guards mixed in. Even cooperative guilds like the Snow Death Rose Mercenary Group, the Breeze Pavilion, and the Rain Listening Tower were no exception. For the territory, they would secretly set up a contact point. The person in charge of the contact point would then weave an intelligence network in the territory. Because of the special nature of the territory, it was decided that it was best to choose an NPC as the person in charge of the contact point. If it was a player, it would easily arouse the suspicion of the Lord. Therefore, the Black Snake Guards were conducting special training for the NPC intelligence personnel of the various intelligence stations, striving to train a group of elite spies and secret agents, especially a group of intelligence talents who could take charge of an area. Because they were still in special training, the infiltration of the territory had not begun. Finally, the spies planted by the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group were also absorbed by the Black Snake Guards to supplement them. At this point, the intelligence network built by the Black Snake Guards finally surfaced. After Ouyang Shua heard it, he was a little dumbfounded. If it could really be implemented according to the Black Snake's plan, it would be amazing. In the future China region, no matter if it was the capital, guilds, or territories, any movement in the wind would not be able to escape Ouyang Shua's eyes. Of course, a plan was a plan. To actually implement it, the difficulty was also huge. Even with a large group of professionals and Ouyang Shua's strong financial support, to lay out such an intelligence network, even the most basic framework would need at least more than a year. Seeing this, Ouyang Shua allocated another 20,000 gold coins from the funds previously withheld to Black Snake. Black Snake was naturally very excited about Ouyang Shua's strong support. What he was doing now was much more exciting compared to the small-scale activities of the Rattlesnake Mercenary Group. Black Snake felt that the blood in his body that had cooled down began to boil again. Ouyang Shua supported the construction of the Black Snake Guards because he sensed some kind of danger from the Black Snake's narration. Since the Black Snake Guards could build such an intelligence network, then what about the big forces like Dichun? Perhaps a territory was just the tip of the iceberg floating on the sea surface for the big forces. The big forces might not be able to compare to Ouyang Shua in terms of judging the direction of the game and management of territories, but in other aspects, they were miles ahead of Ouyang Shua. Building an intelligence network was naturally what the big forces should do. They were too careless. The Battle of Lian Province and the defection of the 3 territories was a sign. Di Chen's intelligence network had actually penetrated into the Lian Province basin. But Ouyang Shua did not know. Thinking of this, Ouyang Shua could not help but tremble. He told his deduction to the Black Snake. After listening, the Black Snake was silent for a while. After a long time, the Black Snake said in a deep voice, "Marquis, don't worry. I will personally preside over the investigation of Lian Province. Within 2 months, we must find out all the spies that the big forces have planted in the Lian Province basin." The Black Snake said to find out, but not to remove them. After listening, Ouyang Shua also nodded in agreement. Some spies, as long as they kept a close eye on them, They did not necessarily have to be removed. Perhaps they could have unexpected effects. Then I'll leave it to you. The black snake nodded and did not speak. In addition to building an intelligence network, the black snake guards also found some interesting information. What Ouyang Shua was most concerned about was the progress between the Star Alliance and the Thread of Love. The rumor about the Star Sage Dust and the Thread of Love is purely false. The black snake first clarified the gossip and then said, on the other hand, the Thread of Love has really been forced to the edge of the cliff by the Star Alliance. It seems that it's time for us to take action. Ouyang Shua smiled faintly, appearing to have a card up his sleeve. When the black snake heard this, he looked at Ouyang Shua in surprise. He could not understand what kind of trump card Ouyang Shua had that made him so confident that he could snatch food from the Star Alliance. Although the Star Alliance had just been established, they had the strong support of the crisscrossing sword aura in the capital and Handan County outside. It wasn't an easy task to shake them. Not to mention others, the power of the Star Sage Dust's family was not to be underestimated. Since the secret family had decided to come out, they would naturally do their best. If Ouyang Shua wanted to slap the Star Alliance in the face, he would have to pay the price. Ouyang Shua naturally would not explain anything to the black snake. That afternoon, he brought 4 personal guards and teleported to the capital and stayed in the Shanghai City office in the capital. The commander of the black snake guards in the capital was the White Snake. The capital was the most important of the 9 king cities, and the White Snake was also one of the best among the 9 commanders. The White Snake reported the specific information to Ouyang Shua in detail. It was reported that under the pressure of the Star Alliance, the Thread of Love had almost fallen into chaos. The entire guild was basically unable to purchase rare materials, and the members were already beginning to be dissatisfied. Under the pressure of the Star Alliance, the attitude of the Thread of Love, the leader of the Thread of Love, had already changed and started to loosen. Perhaps the surrender was just around the corner. When Ouyang Shua heard this, he said faintly, "Help me arrange a meeting with the Thread of Love tomorrow." No problem. The black snake guards had been stationed in the capital for a month, and there was still a way to get in touch with the Thread of Love. As a professional intelligence officer, the White Snake would not ask about the reason and purpose of Ouyang Shua's actions. To him, he only needed to carry out the orders. After the black snake left, Ouyang Shua stayed in the room alone, planning the meeting tomorrow. To be continued. Chapter 371. P.S. If you have a recommendation vote, please vote for me. Shengshao thanks. D. On the 29th of March, Ouyang Shua made an appointment with Love Thread. The meeting place was a tea house in the capital called First Grade Fragrance. Ouyang Shua arrived at First Grade Fragrance half an hour earlier and chose a private room on the 2nd floor, where he could enjoy the scenery along the street outside the window and ensure his privacy. Love Thread was a cold woman. When she came in, Ouyang Shua was brewing tea. "Lord Wui, I've heard of you for a long time. Sect leader Qing's name is also famous." Ouyang Shua smiled and personally poured a cup of hot tea for Love Thread. "Golden Thread Imperial Chrysanthemum Tea, please." Love Thread picked up the teacup and took a sip elegantly. Her eyes lit up and she said, "I didn't expect Lord Wui to be proficient in the way of tea. There was nothing more suitable than drinking flower tea in spring." Love Thread was the leader of a thread. She could be said to be the master of miscellaneous arts. She was proficient in the way of wine, the way of tea, and gourmet food. The love link in life was an exceptionally exquisite woman. Not only was she exquisite, but her taste in life was also exquisite. It wasn't easy for Ouyang Shua's tea to be praised by her. In his previous life, Ouyang Shua didn't like to drink wine, but he loved tea. He was infatuated with love and had some experience in the way of tea. Leader Qing is very refined. I'm sorry for showing off in front of an expert. Love Thread glanced at Ouyang Shua indifferently. She couldn't hide the tiredness in her expression. She didn't want to beat around the bush and said directly, "Lord Wui, you didn't invite me here just to drink tea, did you?" To be honest, if it wasn't for Ouyang Shua, Love Thread wouldn't have come here. Right now, she was really in trouble and was in a sorry state. She really wasn't in the mood to keep the appointment. Ouyang Shua smiled. Leader Qing should be able to guess why I'm here. Oh? You're also interested in a thread? As she spoke, Love Thread already showed her coldness. The atmosphere was no longer as harmonious as it was at the beginning. Recently, she had already been annoyed by similar, strong people. Seeing that Ouyang Shua was no exception, the little good impression she had at the beginning had already disappeared. Ouyang Shua didn't mind and said, "Why don't you listen to my solution?" When he thought about how the other party was the number one player in the game, he suppressed the displeasure in his heart. Recently, she'd been pestered by the dust of constellation to the point of being helpless, and she'd aroused the intention to retire. He had only met Ouyang Shua because he was just holding on to the slightest bit of hope. The Love Silk Knot said indifferently, "I'm all ears. Has sect leader Qing heard of the Cliff Prefecture?" Cliff State. The Love Thread Knot was confused. Players, especially adventurers, were not very sensitive to the map of the China server. Ouyang Shua changed the topic. "What about Jingzhou Island?" Jingzhou Island? The Love Thread button was shocked. As one of the two largest islands in the China region, the name of Jingzhou Island was well known among the players. Seeing the reaction of the Silk of Love, Ouyang Shua nodded. Not bad. He was satisfied with the secrecy of the three elite group. So far, the fact that news about the Cliff State had not spread among adventure-type players was proof of this. Seeing that the Silk Knot of Love was puzzled, Ouyang Shua briefly explained the situation of the Cliff Province. After listening, the Love Thread button did not speak for a long time. As the leader of a gang, the Love Thread was naturally not stupid. From Ouyang Shua's simple description, she had vaguely realized that the Cliff State was a blessed land for skilled people. "Lord Wui, aren't you worried that I'll leak the news?" Ouyang Shua smiled confidently. "I believe in your character, and I believe in my own eyes even more." "What a confident person! Can you elaborate a little more?" The Love Thread button realized that perhaps the turning point that she had been looking forward to was right in front of her. "Of course." Ouyang Shua nodded. The Silk of Love moved its headquarters to Cliff Mountain City and accepted its protection. Outside Cliff Mountain City, there is a large piece of land that can be used by all kinds of people with production skills. Within Cliff Mountain City, there are many things waiting to be done. It is a good place for craftsmen to show their skills. What about the rare materials? How do we solve it? The Love Thread button was not satisfied. The main reason why the Silk of Love was in such a predicament today was that the rare materials were controlled by other guilds. In the future, the Cliff Mountain City will absorb a large number of adventure-type players, and at the same time, it will not accept the entry of guilds. The Five Fingers Mountain is rich in resources, and I believe that the Silk of Love will be able to cooperate happily with this group of adventure-type players. The Love Thread button's eyes lit up. Seeing that the Love Thread knot was already somewhat moved, Ouyang Shua threw out the last strong medicine and said, "The Snow Rose Mercenary Group, Cool Breeze Pavilion and Listen to the Rain Tower have already formed an alliance. I still have some influence on these three guilds. Even if the Silk of Love can't buy enough rare materials from the adventure-type players, I can also help the Silk of Love solve it." The Love Thread button heard this and was shocked again. "I have to say, Lord Wui, you almost convinced me, but—" The Love Thread button wanted to say something but stopped. Ouyang Shua frowned. The Love Thread button's reaction was somewhat out of his expectations. Logically speaking, compared to the merger model proposed by the Sword Energy Crisscrossing or the Star Alliance, his proposal had much less restrictions on the Silk of Love. Basically, both parties had a relationship of equal cooperation. Ouyang Shua couldn't think of a reason for the Love Thread button to refuse. If Leader Qing has any concerns or requests, you might as well say it. Please don't doubt my sincerity. I naturally don't doubt Lord Wui's sincerity. The love thread button sighed in her heart. She also felt that it was a pity that she had missed such an opportunity. She changed the topic and said, "Do you know the identity of Star Zhichen?" Ouyang Shuo suddenly realized that she was worried about this. For ordinary players, the mysterious hidden family still had a very strong deterrent force, and they didn't dare to offend them easily. In his previous life, Ouyang Shuo was also like this. He had always kept a respectful distance from these big forces. This world was already very different. Different experiences had created Ouyang Shuo's extraordinary courage. He said lightly, "A hidden family is not enough to make me afraid. If Leader Qing is only worried about this, you don't have to do this." "What? You actually know his identity?" The love thread button was shocked when she heard this, and her pair of beautiful eyes looked at Ouyang Shuo inquiringly. This man was really unfathomable. Ouyang Shuo nodded and said, "Leader Qing, don't worry. Shanghai City will help you deal with the grudge between Star Alliance and crisscrossing Sword Qi. We won't make things difficult for you. With Lord Wui's promise, I can rest assured." Ouyang Shuo's promise completely eliminated the love thread button's worries. In less than half an hour of meeting, the man in front of her had already completely convinced her. Inexplicably, the love thread button's confidence in Ouyang Shuo doubled. Ouyang Shuo laughed heartily and took the initiative to extend his hand. He said, "It's a pleasure working with you. It's a pleasure working with you." The two giants had officially reached an intention to work together. Next was to discuss the specific details of the cooperation. Thread Button was one of the top 10 guilds. Other than the main guild, there were also 10 branch guilds. All of them were large guilds with a total of 110,000 members. Compared to the other top 10 guilds, Thread Button had the least number of members. The guild with the most members was Baleful Blood Mercenary Corps, which was ranked first, with a total of 300,000 members. Basically, the top 10 guilds had around 200,000 members. Due to the recent changes, many people had already left the guilds, mainly from the branch guild. Therefore, Thread Button's current members were around 100,000. Ouyang Shuo wasn't completely at ease with this group of people. Among them, there was definitely a mix of good and bad people. Ouyang Shuo's intention was to use this opportunity to carry out a cleansing of the guild. The love thread button didn't raise any objections to Ouyang Shuo's suggestion. In fact, the main reason why the love thread button was disheartened by the large number of members leaving the guild. She didn't expect that the guild that she had painstakingly built would actually be unable to withstand the test. At the same time, Ouyang Shuo also promised that after the headquarters moved, Thread Button would enjoy a series of preferential policies in Cliff Mountain City. For example, the first year's rent would be halved, taxes would be halved, and other benefits. At the same time, the Four Seas Bank's branch in Cliff Mountain City would also provide loan services for Thread Button's members to open shops or operate farms. As for the other details, both parties would have to discuss in detail. After the discussion was done, the two of them left. The love thread button had to mobilize the members to move, while Ouyang Shuo had other things to do. The two of them agreed that the day after tomorrow, which was the 1st of April, Thread Button would move as a whole. This news definitely couldn't be hidden from the Star Alliance. Ouyang Shuo couldn't predict what would happen the day after tomorrow. The only thing he could do was to prepare for a rainy day. With Ouyang Shuo's personality, he had never been afraid of guessing people's hearts with the greatest evil. The love thread button returned to the guild headquarters and immediately released a message through the guild channel. "Everyone, I am the love thread button." As soon as the love thread button appeared, the guild channel became silent and the screen was instantly cleared. During this period of time, Thread Button was in the midst of a storm, and regarding this, the love thread button hadn't expressed her position. Within the guild, everyone was panicking. Now that the love thread button stood out, it was obvious that there was going to be a conclusion. All the members had different thoughts. Some were disappointed and some were excited. They were about to face the judgment of fate. The eyes that the Star Alliance had placed in thread button were inexplicably excited. In their opinion, their master must have successfully taken down the love thread button. Thinking of this, these eyes didn't wait for the love thread button to finish speaking and passed this information to their superiors, hoping to get the first credit. In less than 10 minutes, the Star Alliance's master, the Dust of Star, would receive the news. The eyes were secretly excited. They thought that with this credit, they would definitely be able to get an official position in the Star Alliance. The identity of the Star Alliance's master, the Dust of Star, was no longer a secret within the guild. Because of this, the members of the Star Alliance felt that the guild had potential and a bright future. Every one of them seemed to be on steroids and worked very hard. If they could get the Dust of Star's recognition, wouldn't they be able to reach the heavens in a single step? To be continued. Chapter 372. P.S. 3,800-word chapter, rolling on the ground, asking for recommendation votes. The eyes that the Star Alliance had placed in the thread didn't stay excited for long. Love Thread then announced a piece of news in the guild channel. In view of the current situation of the guild, I have decided to allow members to freely leave the guild, become loners, or join other guild. Everything is free, and the guild will no longer interfere. As soon as Love Thread's voice fell, the guild channel was already in an uproar. The 110,000 guild members were gradually divided into two factions. One of them was the doer. After listening to Love Thread's words, they chose to leave the guild without saying a word. Since the leader had admitted defeat, what were they still doing in the guild? There was no future in staying. Instead of that, it was better to part on good terms. As skilled talents, the members of a thread did not have to worry about not being able to find another guild. Of course, there were also some members who were tired of the deceit of the guild and chose to be loners, running a shop in the royal city, making money while improving their skills. It was also a good choice. The other faction was the loyal faction. They spoke in the guild channel to persuade Love Thread to stay. Leader, we can't leave the thread. Yes, a thread is our home, we don't want to leave. Leader, a thread was built by us with hard work, we can't disband. Leader, come out and say something. A thread disbanded, what should we do? Some members fell into a state of panic and helplessness, like wolf cubs abandoned by their mother. Love Thread's mood at this moment was also unusually complicated. On one hand, there was a burst of members proposing to leave the guild in her ears. In less than 2 minutes, thousands of people had left the guild, and it was getting more and more intense. On the other hand, there was the bitter pleading of the members. The members' persuasion to stay let Love Thread know that there were still loyal people in the guild, and they still had feelings for the guild. Even so, Love Thread had to harden her heart and continue this cruel test. Love Thread spoke again in the guild channel. A thread will not disband, but will never be merged by any guild. Even so, if you still want to stay, I have nothing to say. As soon as he said that, some of the so-called loyal members began to waver. After this upheaval, a thread's fall from the top 10 guilds was basically a done deal. If they didn't accept the merger, it was easy to imagine the guild's future. Because of this, the players who still had a glimmer of hope chose to leave the guild. The wave of withdrawing from the guild was getting more and more intense. It started from the outer members, to the elite members, and finally to the core members. Seeing this, a trace of sorrow flashed through the knot of Love's eyes. In particular, the withdrawal of the core members was the biggest blow to her. These people were her brothers and sisters who had fought alongside her for many years and had played several games together. Who would have thought that they would still choose to leave at such a crucial moment? The benefits involved in Earth on Lu were too great. The purpose of players playing the game was no longer simple. There were too many entanglements of interests, and the loyalty of the players was naturally a huge test. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. The love thread link suddenly felt a sense of relief. Hopefully, after this turmoil, a thread could be reborn in Cliff State. In just one afternoon, the number of a thread members who had left the guild had reached more than 40,000, almost halved. Some of those who had not yet left the guild were not all loyal members. They were just exchanging for the guild's resources. Before leaving the guild, the members would basically spend all of their guild points. For a time, in the guild warehouse of a thread, all kinds of materials that had been piled up like a mountain began to disappear at a speed visible to the naked eye. As the leader of the guild, the Knot of Love could prohibit members from exchanging, but she did not do so. After all, the points of the members were saved by them. Even if they wanted to leave the guild, they still had the right to exchange for them. The next plot was completely beyond the expectations of the eyes. Their excited expressions suddenly froze. They could only smile bitterly while passing on the latest information to their superiors. Learning that a large number of a thread members had left the guilds in the capital were in an uproar. Originally, with the joint intervention of Sword Energy and Star Alliance, the other guilds had already given up on the idea. Who would have thought that things would turn out like this? Since a thread refused to be merged, the members who had left the guild would no longer belong to any guild. How many people they could rope in depended on their own abilities. The major guilds were dispatched one after another, working hard to rope in the members of a thread who had left the guild. In the beginning, they still went to contact them one by one. Later on, the major guilds simply set up recruitment points at the entrance of the headquarters of a thread. As soon as the members of a thread left the guild, packed their luggage, and walked out of the guild station, they were stopped by a group of personnel managers of the guild and invited them to join the guild. The scene was extremely lively. Some guilds even fought each other on the streets, exchanging punches and kicks for the sake of competing for members. PK was prohibited in the capital. Otherwise, once they were caught by the constables of 6 doors, they would be imprisoned. They were not Bloodshed, who could run away by himself. These guilds were all registered in the capital, and 6 doors could catch them easily. Therefore, they could only fight a war of words. At most, they would fight with fists and feet. Even if the constables of 6 doors arrived, as long as it was not a fight, it could be explained as a warm-up exercise. Not only the headquarters of a thread, but the residences of the 10 major branches were also the same. Surrounding the entrance of the headquarters were all big guilds. Surrounding the residences of the branches were a mix of large and medium-sized guilds. As for the small guilds, their temples were too small, and the members of a thread would never consider joining them. Among them, there was even the figure of crisscrossing sword Aura. Since Star Alliance could not take down a thread, one sword from the west naturally did not have to worry about anything. He quietly made a fortune and instructed the guild personnel manager to start recruiting a large number of a thread members. Such a lively scene even alarmed the other royal cities. Baleful Blood Mercenary Corps, 18 Steeds of Swallow and Cloud, Flowing Light Pavilion, and other guilds heard the news and came one after another, sending people directly to the capital to recruit people. Such a scene was really like a gluttonous banquet. A thread, which was once one of the top 10 guilds, was the only main dish at the banquet. In the banquet, the most annoyed person was none other than Dust of Stars. When he received the first piece of information, Dust of Stars was still proud of himself. He was proud that he had achieved a complete victory in his first battle. In this way, it was a strong counterattack to the opposition of his family. When he received the information from the next day, Dust of Stars did not feel good in his heart. Suddenly, he fell from the clouds to the abyss. Dust of Stars was so angry that he cursed, "B***tch, you'd rather disband yourself than submit to me." Dust of Stars completely bore a grudge against the instigator of the love thread. Since when had he ever suffered such humiliation? Dust of Stars was so angry that he was about to lose his mind. He was about to arrange for people to take revenge on a thread. Fortunately, there were still capable people in the Star Alliance. At the critical moment, the military advisor of the Star Alliance stood up and said, "Alliance Master, there will be opportunities in the future to concoct the love thread. The most important thing now is to try to rope in the members of a thread." When Dust of Stars heard this, his anger temporarily dissipated. He patted the shoulder of the military advisor and said approvingly, "Not bad, your reminder is right. I'll leave this matter to you." "Thank you, Alliance Master." The military advisor turned around and retreated, beginning to join the feast. This gluttonous feast lasted until the afternoon of the next day before it came to an end. As of 4:00 p.m. on March 30th, a thread, which had 110,000 members, was left with less than 10,000 members who were willing to follow the love thread and continue to run the guild. Faced with such a scene, the love thread was truly heartbroken. When she promised Ouyang Shua to conduct a test on the guild, the love thread could predict that a large number of members would leave the guild. However, she completely did not expect that more than 90% of the members would leave the guild. The love thread could not help but wonder if she was a failure as a leader. Up until now, those who could stay in a thread were all die-hard members of the guild. Even those eyes had basically completely retreated. Only the Star Alliance still had an eye in a thread. Needless to say, the reason was that Dust of Stars harbored hatred in his heart and was ready to take revenge on the love thread at any time. During this feast, the Star Alliance recruited less than 3,000 members. On the contrary, the Unstoppable Sword Aura recruited nearly 10,000 members, which was enough to establish a pure professional guild branch. All the guilds in the capital, big and small, had a share. The top 10 guilds in the capital also reaped a lot of benefit. The Baleful Blood Mercenary Group alone recruited more than 5,000 members, which was more than the Star Alliance, the local tyrant. The influence of the Star Alliance was obviously not as great as Dust of Stars had imagined. How could Dust of Stars not be angry at the huge difference between 3,000 and 110,000? He had already decided to take revenge on a thread and make it impossible for him to establish a foothold in the capital. The 3 guilds of the Alliance of Mountains and Seas also joined the feast. When Ouyang Shua received the news, he did not say anything. He was the leader of the Alliance of Mountains and Seas, but he would not easily interfere with the internal decisions of the members, which was a great taboo. At 5:00 p.m., the love thread did a rough calculation. Among the 10,000 members, there were about 3,000 left in the main guild, which was the lowest number of people who left the guild. After receiving the calculation results, the love thread finally felt a little gratified. At least the main guild that she had painstakingly built was basically trustworthy. Among the hundreds of core members, at least half of them stayed. The top 10 branches were a little miserable. The largest one only had 1,000 members left, and most of them had dropped below 1,000. 1 or 2 newly established branches were almost all gone, and only a few people were left. Helpless, the love thread could only gather all the members in the main guild. As for the top 10 branches, they were just empty shells. The love thread sorted out her emotions and began to speak in the guild channel. "Everyone, I'm the love thread!" The same words sounded in the guild channel, but the meaning was very different. The upheaval that the guild had experienced made the 10,000 die-hard members panic. This was a thread's weakest moment, and it was also strongest moment. The members who stayed became incomparably united. Only by being united could they get through this cold winter. A friend in need is a friend indeed. At the critical moment, I saw everyone's loyalty, which moved me. Now I want to announce that the headquarters of a thread will be moved to Cliff Mountain City. Cliff Mountain City? Cliff Mountain City is a city built on Jingzhou Island by the #1 Lord of China, who has no clothes. That place will be the nirvana of a thread. If you don't want to leave the capital, you can still leave now. I won't force you. The love thread didn't explain too much about Cliff Mountain City. Even so, the golden signboard of "Who has no clothes" still let the members see a trace of sunshine in the cold winter. Hearing this, only a few members, because they didn't want to leave the capital, chose to leave the guild. For these members, the love thread prepared a generous severance package for them. After all, they had withstood the test and deserved to be rewarded. The materials in the guild warehouse were only a small part of a thread's assets. After all, those materials were some ordinary materials, and the rare materials had long been put away by the love thread. The really valuable assets of a thread were the various industries that the guild had purchased in the capital, including hundreds of workshops and 50 to 60 shops. Some of the shops were even in the prosperous areas of the capital. These properties were all accumulated by a thread through hard work over the past year, living frugally. The purpose was to provide a platform for the members to hone their skills, and it was also the guild's main source of income. The finished products processed by the members were all sold through the shop. These precious industries were sold out by the love thread in one day. The only thing that was preserved was the headquarters courtyard. First, the love thread wanted to keep it as a memento. Second, they left an industry in the capital, so that in the future, when the members of a thread returned to the capital to work, they would also have a place to stay. Even the empty shells of the 10 branches were resold by the love thread to other guilds. In total, the love thread had collected a total of 160,000 gold coins. This capital was the capital for a thread to make a comeback in Cliff Mountain City. To be continued. Chapter 373. After learning that a thread was going to move to Cliff Mountain City, the Dust of Star was flustered and exasperated. It was only at this moment that he realized that all of this was caused by Shi Wui. "Bitch, I won't let you get away with this." The Dust of Star gritted his teeth, and a trace of viciousness flashed in his eyes. "Someone come!" Alliance Master. The military advisor walked in. The failure to recruit a thread members made him very nervous, and he was afraid that the Alliance Master would blame him. It was not that he was not attentive, but the appeal of the Star Alliance was too weak. Although the Dust of Star was angry, he was still rational. As a member of an aristocratic family, he still had basic self-restraint. He called the military advisor over because he had another task for him. After hearing this, the military advisor was a little surprised. After thinking about it, he still held back what he was about to say. The Alliance Master was angry, and persuading him at this time was tantamount to asking for trouble. Strategists planned for themselves first, and most of them were proficient in protecting themselves. However, the Dust of Star saw the military advisor's strange expression and said indifferently, "If you have any thoughts, say it." The military advisor's face turned bitter when he heard this. At this time, he had to say it even if he didn't want to. The military advisor organized his words and said tactfully, "Alliance Master, this matter has no benefits for the Star Alliance. Instead, it will create a great enemy for no reason. Isn't that a little too much?" The Dust of Star shook his head and said, "You're wrong. Shi Wui is the Yen Huang Alliance's mortal enemy, which is also our enemy. How can we talk about creating enmity for no reason? Star Alliance has just joined the Yen Huang Alliance, and it's time for us to perform well. If we can make Shi Wui lose face tomorrow, won't we be able to improve Star Alliance's position in the alliance?" When the military advisor heard this, although he instinctively felt that it was a little inappropriate, he could not find any words to refute. "All right, that's the arrangement. However, The Dust of Stars' patience was exhausted. He waved his hand and signaled for the military advisor to leave. Yes. The military advisor left and arranged according to the Dust of Stars' request. April 1st, Kyoto. After the members of A Thread finished packing, they officially bid farewell to the headquarters in Kyoto and walked majestically towards the only teleportation portal in Kyoto. Only then did the guilds in Kyoto receive the news that A Thread was actually leaving Kyoto. Seeing this, the players could not help but sigh. In just 2 days, one of the top 10 guilds in China had vanished into thin air. The vicissitudes of the world are truly unfathomable by ordinary people. Along the way, there were players pointing at the team. Where is A Thread moving to? Who knows? He must want to leave this sad place. Sigh, the role model and spiritual leader of us lifestyle players is gone just like that. Dare I ask, will there still be a day for us life players to make a name for ourselves? A tailor let out a long sigh in the middle of the street, drawing waves of sympathy. The weak are prey to the strong. What else can we do? There were even some members of A Thread who had left the guild. Their new guild emblem hung on their chests, and when they saw their former colleagues, they had complicated expressions on their faces. There were those who felt sorry for him, and there were also those who mocked and took pleasure in his misfortune. These players who didn't leave were naturally the greatest mockery towards those who had left the guild. Most of them couldn't wait for One Thread to disband. The complexity and viciousness of the human heart was evident. Love Thread walked at the front of the team, expressionless as she faced the finger-pointing of the passers-by. She only secretly swore in her heart, "Jingdu, I will return in an even more glorious manner." The other members were not as calm as Love Thread. It was really not a pleasant thing to be judged like this on the street, and some people's faces were already flushed. They only hoped that they could go a little faster on this path of refining the heart. The teleportation array in Jingdu was located in the largest square in the capital and occupied a very large area. Compared to the teleportation array in the territory, the teleportation array in the capital was much busier, and there were people going in and out at all times. At this moment, the square seemed a little unusual. 20,000 members of the Star Alliance formed circles and surrounded the transmission array so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Dust of Star stood at the outermost periphery, quietly waiting for A Thread to arrive. In the tea house on the east side of the square, Ouyang Shua and 4 guards silently watched the square, expressionlessly watching Dust of Star's performance. Ouyang Shua was not surprised at all that Dust of Star had come forward to disrupt the situation. What made him speechless was that Dust of Star had actually used such a rogue method. Yes, it was a rogue. Jingdu did not allow PK, but it did not prohibit players from standing. In theory, it was not against the law for the members of the Star Alliance to surround the teleportation array. In this way, A Thread could not teleport away, which was a big slap to the face. It was not only a slap to the face of Love Thread, but also Ouyang Shua's face. Thinking of this, Ouyang Shua took out an item, handed it to the guard beside him, and whispered to him. The guard nodded, quietly left the tea house, and disappeared. In the past 2 days, Ouyang Shua did not do nothing. When the members of A Thread rushed to the square and saw the formation in front of them, they could not help but be dumbfounded. Dust of Star, what do you mean by this? Love Thread stared coldly at Dust of Star with an angry expression. She originally had some fear for this young master of an aristocratic family, but at this moment, seeing that he had actually done such a disgraceful thing, the trace of fear in her heart completely dissipated, leaving only full of contempt. Nothing. Dust of Star was proud in his heart, but on the surface, he pretended to be innocent. Don't you think it's too much? Love Thread angrily rebuked. Too much! Dust of Star suddenly exploded, as if his tail had been stepped on. His expression changed dramatically and he said loudly, "Be*tch." You still have the face to say the word too much to me? You clearly promised me, but you turned to the embrace of no close. If I don't kill you, it will be difficult to dispel the hatred in my heart. You. Love Thread's face turned cold, and for a moment, she was so angry that she could not speak. Since she was a child, she had never been humiliated like this. At this moment, the square was already a sea of people. The players clearly heard the conversation between the two. Hearing this, there was an instant uproar. Love Thread was, after all, one of the 4 female adventurers, but at this moment she was humiliated like this. When a tiger fell to the plains, it would be bullied by dogs. This is too much. That's right. Fortunately, he did not join the Star Alliance. I didn't expect that their *T Alliance master would be so ungentlemanly. He's really trash. These heroes who were fighting for justice only dared to complain in a low voice. In the vast square, no one dared to stand up. Seeing this, Dust of Star became more and more complacent. As the successor of a secret aristocratic family, Dust of Star had been asked to keep a low profile since he was born. No matter how rich, powerful he was, he could only pretend to be an ordinary person. Long-term repression had already lost his true nature and distorted his personality. Now, he enjoyed the feeling of being the focus of tens of thousands of people. He, the son of an aristocratic family, a mysterious chi cultivator, was destined to become the focus of the audience. Compared to the powerful children of Dichin, the Dust of Star had received a traditional aristocratic family education. In his heart there was no concept of equality between men and women. Therefore, he would call her AB*TCA. He said it smoothly and did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. Little did he know that he had committed a big taboo. In the square, there were existences who did not dare to provoke the Star Alliance. They were silent, digesting the other information that Dust of Star had just said. No clothes. Behind the relocation of Thread by Thread was He Wui. This was something that the major guilds had never thought of before. How could they not be shocked that 2 forces that did not have any contact with each other suddenly joined together? They realized that Dust of Star was not only provoking the love thread, but also No Clothes, who was standing behind the love thread, the huge shadow that shrouded the China region. Just the thought of challenging that person was enough to send shivers down one's spine. Therefore, these people did not make a move. They did not think that Shanghai City would not make a move. Since that was the case, they only needed to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. They were calm, but that did not mean that the members of Thread were calm. When they saw that their gang master had been humiliated, they immediately exploded and clamored to fight with the Star Alliance. F***CK, kill them. Their mouths are too smelly. Trample them to death. Fortunately, the love thread was still rational and stopped its members from advancing. It was obvious what the result would be if a life profession player fought against a combat profession player who was twice the number. The love thread was waiting for a person to arrive. Seeing that the members of Thread were all angry but did not dare to rush forward, Dust of Star could not help but feel even more proud. He laughed loudly. A bunch of cowards. Go back and drink your milk, ha ha. Cooperating with the leader, the members of the Star Alliance laughed unscrupulously. Ouyang Shua sat in the tea-house and slowly took a sip of his cold tea. He said calmly, I don't like Dust of Star. The white snake, who was sitting opposite him, felt her heart tighten when she heard this. She knew the weight of the marquee words. It was basically the same as sentencing the Star Alliance to death. The white snake looked at Dust of Star and a trace of pity flashed in her eyes. He was still too young and arrogant. Did he really think that the hidden aristocratic families were that great in the game? It was likely that the Dust of Star still didn't know what kind of giant he was provoking. Not to mention him, even the Yen Huang Alliance behind the Star Alliance was very cautious when facing the Marquis. After many failed confrontations, some members, such as Military Kill Ripper, were even traumatized. The white snake could not imagine what kind of confidence Dust of Star had. He only knew that what he needed to do next was to completely infiltrate the Star Alliance and pave the way for the Marquis actions. Not only that, he had to speed up his actions against the other guilds in the capital. The Star Alliance would be a whetstone to test the Black Snake Guard's intelligence station in the capital. At this moment, the guard returned and whispered into Ouyang Shua's ear. Ouyang Shua nodded and stood up, saying, "Let's go down too. We can't let our friend wait for too long." Chapter 374. Ouyang Shua walked down the stairs and encountered a white-robed scholar. This person was handsome and refined. His eyes were smiling, making people feel as if they were bathed in the spring breeze. Ouyang Shua's eyes squinted. He never imagined that he would actually encounter such a peerlessly graceful figure in the tea-house. Because Ouyang Shua had important matters to attend to, he wasn't able to converse with this person, so he nodded slightly and passed by. On the square, the Star Alliance and the Thread of Hope had fallen into a deadlock. At this moment, a group of 6 Fan Gate constables, about 200 of them, suddenly barged in. The leader was a middle-aged constable. He wore a 5-beam crown on his head and was dressed in a dragonfish brocade robe with an embroidered spring saber at his waist. Who dares to cause trouble in the capital? The middle-aged constable was a hall master of the 6 Fan School. His position in the 6 Fan School was not low. Above him were the sect master, the deputy commander, and the grand commander. The Dust of Star's heart shuddered when he saw the 6 doors. He had a bad feeling about this. Hearing the leader's question, the Dust of Star gestured with his eyes for the military advisor beside him to step forward and answer. Although the military counselor was shocked, he was still calm. He stepped forward and bowed to the middle-aged constable. He said, "Sir, we are members of the Star Alliance. We are only gathering here today and don't dare to cause trouble." The middle-aged constable laughed coldly. How could this little trick be difficult for him? He said sternly, "Hey, how dare you? You're obviously disrupting the normal operation of the transmission array, yet you still dare to quibble. Guards, throw them all into prison." "Yes, sir." In an instant 200 constables took out their chains at the same time and were about to arrest them. The 200 constables were fearless against 20,000 players. In the territory of the capital, there was no guild that dared to oppose 6 doors. After all, 6 doors represented the imperial court of the capital. Not to mention the hundreds of thousands of imperial guards stationed in the palace, even the constables of the 6 Fan School in the capital numbered no less than 10,000. Among them, there was no lack of martial arts masters. It would not take much effort to take down the Star Alliance. The onlookers in the square were blinded by the sudden turn of events. What's going on? Why are people from 6 Fan School here? Did the Star Alliance offend someone? This time, they've kicked an iron plate. Hee, there's a good show to watch. What do you call this? Not only did you fail to show off, you got hit instead? Haha. I didn't expect a thread to have such a background. Not necessarily. If a thread was really that powerful, then the love knot wouldn't have gotten angry out of humiliation just now. A player retorted. Brother, what you said makes sense. Then who is helping one thread? As he spoke, the people around him all turned to look at him. That player's name was Great Waves Washing Sand. He could be considered to have some knowledge. Seeing that he had become the center of attention, he couldn't help but feel proud. He pretended to be calm and said, "Hey, I say, are you guys stupid? Didn't you hear what the Dust of Star said just now? Think about it, in the capital, which big shot is more influential than that one? It can't be." The other players didn't believe it. No matter how powerful Wui is, can he mobilize 6 doors? In the eyes of ordinary players, 6 doors was an unreachable existence. Even the most ordinary constable was enough to be ranked among the top of the players. Great Waves Washing Sand snorted and said, Shallow. Don't forget that one is different from us. He is a marquis officially conferred by the imperial court. Mobilizing 6 doors is nothing. When the players heard this, they couldn't help but gasp in admiration. They all looked at Great Waves washing sand with admiration. Great Waves washing sand was secretly pleased, but on the surface, he looked calm and indifferent. When the players saw this, they were even more impressed. What a master! Some of the clever ones went forward to add him as a friend and establish a relationship. Great Waves washing sand didn't refuse anyone. After that, he even pulled a group of players to a corner of the square, acting mysterious. The players guessed what kind of shocking gossip this master was going to reveal, and they all showed expectant eyes. Great Waves washing sand's expression was solemn. He slowly took out a worn-out armor from his storage bag and said, "Standard armor, silver quality, 1 piece for 5 medals. Brother, do you want one?" At this moment, Great Waves washing sand's gaze was as sincere as it could be. Everyone was stunned. The image of the master instantly collapsed. Met the wrong person. It turned out that this guy was a profiteer. He actually sold a worn-out armor for 5 gold coins. The players shook their heads and left. Some ruthless ones deleted him on the spot. Hey, don't go. It's silver quality. This is a product of Shanghai City. It's definitely the best. Great Waves washing sand's expression changed instantly, and he revealed a profiteer's smile. Don't pull me. Seeing this, the players ran even faster, disappearing without a trace. Brother, the price is negotiable. Don't go. In an instant, the group of players left without a trace. Great Waves washing sand felt that he had met the wrong person. He shook his head and sighed. Suddenly, he saw that there was still one person standing in the corner. He was shocked and put on his trademark smile. Brother, do you want one? The player, on the other hand, was drooling at the sight of the armor. He said innocently, Expert, I only have 1 gold coin. Is that okay? As he spoke, he took out a gold coin and held it tightly, his eyes filled with anticipation. Obviously, this gold coin was this player's entire fortune. He treasured it very much. Great Waves washing sand didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he heard this. The armor in his hands was obtained from the Snow Death Rose mercenary group. He wanted to be a middleman and earn some money. The cost of purchasing them was 1 gold coin. Seeing that he had met a rookie, the profiteer did not know why, but his heart suddenly softened, and he sold one to him. Perhaps Great Waves washing sand remembered how he was when he first entered the game. He was also this simple. Unfortunately, fate made a fool of people. A pure child had already become a profiteer. That player was overjoyed when he received the armor. He was so excited that he almost couldn't speak. Master, you're a good person. Thank you, thank you. Looking at the pure little warrior, Great Waves washing sand could only pretend to be a master and said calmly, It's not worth much. Little brother, you still need to work hard. Yes. The little warrior nodded vigorously. What Great Waves washing sand didn't know was that his soft-heartedness today had created a game master. This was a story to be told later, so let's not talk about it for now. Seeing that the situation wasn't right, Starja quickly stood up. He walked to the middle-aged constable's side and quietly handed over a gold note. He said in a low voice, Sir, we've offended you. We'll leave now. This is a small token of our appreciation. Please accept it. Only the heavens knew how sullen Starja felt at this moment. He had lost a lot of face today. He couldn't understand why the people of 6 Doors would suddenly rush over. According to the usual practice, as long as it wasn't a major case or assassination, no matter how much trouble the players caused, the people of 6 Doors would ignore them. He didn't know what medicine they took today, but they actually meddled in other people's business. It wasn't that Starja didn't think that there was no need for clothes, but even the Marquis couldn't easily mobilize the people of 6 Doors to help. Were there few marquis in the territory of the capital? The people of Six Doors wouldn't let the marquis order them to clean up after them. Just as Starja thought, Six Doors wouldn't easily make a move, but Ouyang Shual was different. On New Year's Day, Ouyang Shual was assassinated in the capital, but Six Doors couldn't find the murderer. The person in charge of this case was the middle-aged constable in front of him. Therefore, the middle-aged constable felt that he owed Ouyang Shual. This time, when Ouyang Shual asked for help, the middle-aged constable agreed without hesitation. That was how the following plot came about. Seeing Starja handing over a 200 gold coin note, a trace of disdain flashed in the middle-aged constable's eyes. Marquis Lian Province had rewarded him with 5,000 gold coins. Ouyang Shual didn't spend so much money for today's matter. He mainly wanted to make a connection in the capital. In the future, the Black Snake Guards and the capital's office would be active in the capital. Strictly speaking, 200 gold coins wasn't a small amount. It was equivalent to half a year's salary of the middle-aged constable. Unfortunately, there was always a higher mountain. The middle-aged constable smiled coldly and said, "Tisk, how dare you bribe me? Men! Sir! Take this person down and bring him to the Yamen for trial." Yes. The two constables didn't say anything else and immediately used iron chains to lock up Starja. Before Starja could react, he was already taken down. Until now, he still didn't understand what was going on in this world. As usual, he handed over a reward and cleared the way, but the damn constable turned his back on him. "Take him away." The middle-aged constable was expressionless. Seeing that the Alliance Master had been taken down, the members of the Star Alliance could only obediently give in. The constables of the Six Fan School used long iron chains to lock up the members of the Star Alliance and escorted them to the Yamen of the Six Fan School. It was a spectacular scene. The onlookers on the square were also dumbfounded when they saw this scene. Holy sh*t, this is 2f** King Awesome. This is the rhythm of a street parade. The Star Alliance can't stay in the capital anymore. Being treated like monkeys, the members of the Star Alliance lowered their heads and wished they could drill into the ground. The people of the major forces were also nervous when they saw this scene. It was better to offend the King of Hell than the Marquis of Lian Province. The middle-aged constable didn't care. He turned around and came to the love thread buckle and said gently, "Are you Master Qing? Because of the security in the capital, please forgive me for the inconvenience caused to your gang." Usually, the middle-aged constable wouldn't be so polite. All this was to give face to the Marquis of Lian Province. Hearing this, the love thread buckle couldn't help but burst into tears. Ouyang Shual was compensating her for the grievances and humiliation she had suffered. This kind of respect was more important than anything else. The members of the love thread buckle also held their heads high at this moment. "Thank you for your help, Your Excellency." The love thread buckle bowed. The middle-aged constable waved his hand and led the team away. He had done everything he could. It was not until the people of the Six Fan School escorted the members of the Star Alliance away that Ouyang Shual showed up. Although everyone had guessed that he was behind this, Ouyang Shual didn't want to be accused of colluding with the Six Fan School. Seeing Ouyang Shual's appearance, there was a commotion in the square. In the end, Ouyang Shual was the real protagonist of this big show. To be continued. Chapter 375. Ouyang Shual came to the love silk buckle and said, "Take care." The love silk buckle nodded. The two had formed a tacit understanding. Anything else would be pretentious. After a simple farewell, the love silk buckle teleported to Cliff Mountain City. At this moment, Sun Xiaoye must be waiting beside the teleportation array in Cliff Mountain City. Ouyang Shual did not teleport to Cliff Mountain City. There were still some things waiting for him to deal with in Shanghai City. He also believed that Sun Xiaoye and Bai Nanpu were enough for the time being in Cliff Mountain City. The show had come to an end. Knowledgeable players knew that the enmity between the two sides would continue. The capital was destined to not be peaceful. After sending off the love silk, Ouyang Shua turned and walked towards the tea-house next to the square. Ouyang Shua felt that the white-robed scholar he had just met was not a simple person. He wanted to get to know him. Unfortunately, when Ouyang Shua arrived at the tea-house, he did not see the white-robed scholar. "Hey, have you seen a white-robed scholar?" Ouyang Shua handed over a gold coin as he pulled a waiter over and asked. The waiter took the gold coin and immediately beamed. This gold coin was equivalent to 2 months of his salary. He quickly said, "There is such a person. Unfortunately, he has already left the tea-house." "How long has he been gone? Which direction did he go?" "He just left not long ago. I don't know where he went." Ouyang Shua looked disappointed, but he did not want to give up. He said to the 4 guards, "He must not have gone far. Split up and chase after him. Hurry!" "Marquis, this." The guards were in a dilemma. "What?" "Marquis, if we all leave, what about you?" After the assassination in the capital, Wang Feng had transferred 8 of his most elite guards from the Imperial Guard Brigade, now known as the Yulin Guard. They worked in 2 shifts to protect Ouyang Shua 24 hours a day. "It's okay, I will follow the Marquis." The white snake stood up. The guards wanted to say something, but Ouyang Shua had already waved his hand, indicating that they should immediately chase after him. Ouyang Shua took the white snake and personally chased after him to the east. Compared to Shanghai City, the capital was very prosperous. The roads were crisscrossed, and there were countless streets and alleys. It was crowded with people. Ouyang Shua chased for half an hour, but he didn't see the figure of the white-clothed scholar. "Forget it, I won't chase him any more." Ouyang Shua sighed. Half an hour had passed and there were no more clues. Damned fortune source, it really didn't give him the chance to have a fortuitous encounter. Ouyang Shua was almost certain that the other party was a historical figure from the Spring and Autumn Warring States period. As for the earlier Shang and Zhou dynasties, they were either living in seclusion or had already become officials. It was unlikely that they would meet again. Even the most famous Yi of the Shang dynasty had been subdued by a lord called Chun Hang. It was reported that Chun Hang was a local tyrant in the Jian district. After subduing Yi, his reputation had soared and he had become the leader of the feudal lords' alliance. He was also an extraordinary figure. Not only the Shang and Zhou dynasties, but many people from the Spring and Autumn and Warring States periods had also become officials. Previously, it was hidden by the lord, but after the formation of the Territory Alliance, it was gradually revealed by the players on the forum. The existing territories basically had 1 or 2 historical figures overseeing them, be they civil officials or military generals. In this regard, Gaia was quite fair. The most shocking news was that Wu Qi had become an official in Bawang County. Xiongba, that old fox, somehow managed to convince Wu Qi. Wu Qi was on the same level as Sun Bin, maybe even more so. The white snake saw that the Marquis was dejected and said, "Marquis, I think we might be able to find some clues if we return to the tea-house. With the nature of a scholar, since he has chosen a tea-house, it is very likely that he is a regular customer." Ouyang Shua's eyes lit up when he heard that. He slapped his head hard. "Ah, why didn't I think of that? Let's go back to the tea-house." When they returned to the tea-house, the guards had also returned. As expected, they had found nothing. Ouyang Shua was not discouraged. He found the waiter and asked, "Waiter, does the scholar in white come here often to drink tea?" The waiter knew that the other party was a marquis, and did not dare to slight him. He said, "Marquis, you have asked the right person. That young master does not come every day. He only comes when there is a chess game in the tea-house." "Chess game?" "That's right. In order to attract customers, the tea-house will hold 5 chess games every month. Guests can enjoy the tea while watching the game of chess," the waiter proudly introduced. Ouyang Shua nodded. When is the next chess game? In 5 days. Ouyang Shua took out another gold coin and handed it to the waiter. He said, in 5 days I will come here again. Reserve a private room for me. If that young master arrives first, you can lead him to a private room, understand? Don't worry, Marquis. I will definitely do it. The waiter was even more excited when he received the reward. As expected of a marquis, he was generous. After leaving the tea-house, Ouyang Shua returned to the small courtyard of the office in the capital. The white snake followed and asked, Marquis, are you going to wait in the capital, or? Ouyang Shua thought for a moment and said, just wait in the capital and deal with the matter of the Star Alliance. Marquis, what do you mean? To deal with the Star Alliance, he had to consider the intervention of the crisscrossing sword chi. Contact 1 or 2 big guilds in the capital. I think they will be interested in cooperating with us. Ouyang Shua also wanted to get a crisscrossing sword chi. In the last system auction, because of the fight for the divine weapon 7-star Dragon Well, the crisscrossing sword chi and the Snow Rose mercenary group had become sworn enemies. If there was a chance, Ouyang Shua naturally wouldn't mind teaching the crisscrossing sword chi a lesson. Although adventure-type players had started to rise, compared to a great lord like Ouyang Shua, they were still not strong enough to compete with a territory. Thus, they had to find a lord to rely on. In the later stages of the game, the situation was very different. Now, Ouyang Shua had enough confidence to deal with the crisscrossing sword chi. The white snake's eyes lit up when she heard this and said, I understand. Don't worry, Marquis. There will be results in 2 days. Ouyang Shua nodded and didn't say anything. April 3rd, the capital. In a pavilion in the courtyard, 4 young people sat in the host and guest seat. Ouyang Shua sat in the host's seat and the white snake sat opposite him. In secret, the white snake was the commander of the Black Snake Guard's intelligence station in the capital. On the surface, the white snake was the head butler of the capital office. On Ouyang Shua's left was a cool, handsome guy with a cold face. He was the leader of the Shadow Alliance, Shadowfox. On the right was a gentle and polite young master. He was the leader of the Dream House, Devouring Clouds. These 2 guilds occupied the 2nd and 4th places in the capital's guild ranking. The 3rd was the Star Alliance, which had recently risen to power. After receiving Ouyang Shua's invitation, Shadowfox and Devouring Clouds were both excited and nervous. The scene that happened in the square of the capital had long since spread in the circle. Forget about the others, the members of the Star Alliance were still locked up in the prison of the 6 doors. The Dust of Star was even worse. He was sentenced to a month in prison. The person in front of them was really terrifying. When the white snake came out to invite the 2 of them, she had already hinted that the Star Alliance was the target. Dark Shadow Fox did not comment on this, but Dream Cloud's Swallowtop responded positively. Once the Dust of Star came to the capital, he pulled the Dream House down in a short 1 or 2 months. It wasn't hard to imagine what Devouring Clouds thought of the Dust of Star. Shadow Fox came to the meeting and his target was the crisscrossing sword chi. As the 3rd strongest guild in the China server, the crisscrossing sword chi had suppressed all the guilds in the capital to the point that they couldn't even breathe. However, the capital was a place with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. There were too many people who wanted to challenge the position of the crisscrossing sword chi. Shadow Fox was one of the outstanding figures among them. From the beginning, the Shadow Alliance had been competing with the crisscrossing sword chi. Although they didn't win, they still firmly occupied the 2nd place in the capital. Even the Star Alliance couldn't shake them. Shadow Fox's strength and tenacity could be seen clearly. After receiving the invitation from the White Snake, Shadow Fox realized that his chance to turn the tables had come. From the 2 targets that the White Snake invited, Ouyang Shua knew that the White Snake had already grasped the grudges between the guilds in the capital in a short period of time. The ability of the commander of the capital was not to be underestimated. Compared to the intelligence station, the Black Snake Guards were miles ahead of them. Ouyang Shua felt that spending 100,000 gold coins was not a loss at all. It was worth it. Both of you are the top figures in the capital. Are you interested in cooperating with Shanghai City? After the small talk, Ouyang Shua went straight to the main topic. With his current position, he didn't need to beat around the bush when he spoke and did things. No matter what it was, he would say it clearly and straightforwardly. He tried his best to simplify complicated matters. There was nothing else but confidence. I'd like to hear the details. Although Dream Clouds was anxious, his words were very professional. Ouyang Shua nodded and said, "It's simple. The Alliance of Mountains and Seas will sell you a batch of elite equipment, including strong bows, heavy swords, and shields. The condition is that I want to make it impossible for the Star Alliance to establish a foothold in the Third Circle." The Third Circle of the capital was the focus of the guild. If a guild couldn't establish a foothold in the Third Circle, it was the same as giving up the fight for the first position. And the further they went, the greater the gap would be. Ouyang Shua's request was basically saying that he wanted to make it impossible for the Star Alliance to establish a foothold in the capital. In truth, Ouyang Shua's conditions had already tempted Shadow Fox and Dream Clouds. This kind of elite equipment was something that all the big guilds dreamed of. Right now, it was a crucial period for the big guilds to explore the Third Circle. If they could have this batch of equipment and pair it with one or two elite groups, they would be successful. Once they had the initiative, the benefits would be huge. Otherwise, Xiexun wouldn't have been so anxious during the Alliance of Mountains and Seas meeting. The batch of equipment that Ouyang Shua agreed to sell did not take up the share of the other members. Instead, he took out half of the equipment that he had exchanged. After all, Ouyang Shua had placed an order for the heavy swords and shields. To be continued. Chapter 376. Ouyang Shua stated his conditions, and Jiang Fox instinctively wanted to bargain. It's not easy to deal with the Star Alliance. When Ouyang Shua heard this, he couldn't help but laugh. Jiang Hu looked cool, but he liked to beat around the bush. You're wrong. To me, dealing with the Star Alliance is just a way to vent my anger. There are no real benefits, but for the two of them it was a great opportunity. Pay and gain are always proportional, aren't they? Jiang Hu was stunned when he heard Ouyang Shua's words. He had not expected Ouyang Shua to be so confident. Of course, Ouyang Shua was confident. If Shadow Alliance didn't want to cooperate with him, he could find another alliance. At that time, the ones who would suffer would be the two in front of him. He believed that Jiang Hu would never give up on this collaboration. It was a negotiation. As long as the other party's bottom line was grasped, anything could be discussed. Seeing that Ouyang Shua was sitting on the fishing platform, Jiang Fox could only smile bitterly. It was not a good feeling to be caught by someone. He was also a decisive person. Seeing that things couldn't be done, he immediately gave up and nodded his head in agreement. At this point, the cooperation between the three parties was completed. Ouyang Shua had no intention of bringing Shadow Alliance and Dream Pavilion into the Guild Alliance. Even if he wanted to bring them in, he would have to wait until they got rid of Unhindered Sword Aura and the Star Alliance in the capital. On the other hand, a thread had successfully joined the Alliance of Mountains and Seas under Ouyang Shua's recommendation. In reality, Ouyang Shua did not expect the Shadow Alliance and the Dream Pavilion to be able to defeat the crisscrossing Sword Aura. Even defeating the Star Alliance would be difficult. How could it be easy for crisscrossing Sword Aura to dominate the capital? Since the hidden family behind the Star Alliance had decided to come out, they would definitely go all out. Ouyang Shua's goal was to keep the guilds in the capital in check and balance each other. He wanted to tie down the energy of the Star Alliance and the Unhindered Sword Aura so that they would be exhausted from dealing with the civil war. Thus, Ouyang Shua was satisfied. In the end, it would be up to the Mountain and Sea Alliance to deal with these two guilds. After sending off Shadow Fox and Dream Cloud's Swallowtop, Ouyang Shua stayed in the courtyard and did not go anywhere else. With the upcoming drama in the capital, he could sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. That afternoon, a batch of elite equipment promised by Shanghai City, including 1,000 strong bows, 1,000 divine arm crossbows, 500 heavy swords, and 2,000 shields, arrived at the capital. Ouyang Shua set the price at 44,000 gold coins and sold it to Shadow Alliance and Dream House. As for the price of the equipment, Ouyang Shua added 10% to the base price within the alliance. Even so, it still made Shadow Fox and Dream Cloud's Swallowtop incredibly happy. If such an elite piece of equipment were to be sold on the market, it would be at least 5 to 10 points more expensive. Ouyang Shua kept 20,000 gold coins from selling the equipment to make up for his investment in the Black Snake Guards and maintained the funds he had on hand at 50,000 gold coins. The remaining 24,000 gold coins were transferred to the treasury. The funds would be used as a special fund to expand the 4 major military workshops. According to Shanghai City's plan, the military workshop area in the eastern district would be expanded eastward all the way to the river in the canyon. Even the docks along the river were included as military dock. After the expansion, the area of the military workshop was more than 5 times larger than before. After a year of nurturing, thousands of mid-level blacksmiths were born, and they would support the rapid development of the military industry in the territory. With the support of Shanghai City's equipment, a Shadow Alliance and Dream House were full of confidence. On the 4th of April, a Dream House suddenly attacked a Star Alliance's leveling team in the third circle. Star Alliance was caught off guard and suffered heavy losses. The main force of the Star Alliance was still in prison. Facing Dream House's relentless attacks, they were forced to give up a large number of leveling and resource gathering points. Crisscrossing Sword Aura wanted to send reinforcements, but they were stopped by Shadow Alliance. For a moment, the atmosphere in the capital became unusually tense. On the 5th of April, the main force of the Star Alliance was released. Once they were released, they launched a powerful counterattack under the leadership of the various Hall Masters and fought with a Dream House. Dream House had the initiative, so they were naturally not afraid and fought bravely. The flames of war in the capital burned more and more fiercely, and the war between the guilds officially began. The various guilds in the China region were like the previous territories, facing a round of survival of the fittest. The strong survived and the weak perished. Affected by the flames of war in the capital, challengers jumped out from the 9 royal cities one after another, trying to challenge the top 10 guild. No, it should be the status of the 9 guilds now. Wisp of a Thread withdrew, and it just so happened that there was a top 10 guild stationed in each royal city. The players were waiting to see who would fill the gap left by Wisp of a Thread. Taking this opportunity, the alliance of the Shanghai Alliance's guilds officially surfaced. 3 of the top 10 guilds and 1 of the former top 10 guilds joined hands, and the flames of war that had just been ignited stopped for a moment. The guilds in Jianye, Luoyang, and Dali all stopped their banners and drums. The withdrawal of the 3 cities caused the flames of war in the other royal cities to burn even more fiercely. Apart from the capital that was already at war with each other, Xianyang had bloody romance guarding it, and no one dared to have any ideas about it. Xiangyang's 18 steeds of Swallow and Cloud had the support of Lord Chunshan, and they could be considered to have a stable footing. Chang'an's embroidered uniform guard, Chuanzhou's flowing light pavilion, and Chengdu's Laojun Temple were the top 10 guilds that hadn't cooperated with the territories yet, but they had already become the main targets of the ambitious people. Laojun Temple, in particular, was ranked last, and was under the most pressure. There used to be an unknown guild in Chengdu called the Blazing Glory Society, and its president, Ming Yi, was also a descendant of a secretive aristocratic family, and it was said that his ancestor was once a member of the imperial family. With the appearance of the Blazing Glory Society, a Laojun Temple became the dominant guild in Chengdu, and it gradually evolved into the Two Heroes Guild. Rumor had it that the Blazing Glory Society had already joined forces with the Jianxia County of the Chengdu district. As a result, a Laojun Temple faced even more pressure. The Blazing Glory Society's strong rise became the best example of this round of guild wars. Taking this opportunity, the Black Snake Guards also showed off their skills, taking advantage of the chaos, and planted spies in the major guild. Ouyang Shua, on the other hand, sat on the fishing platform calmly. No one knew that he was the cause of this round of guild wars. 6th of April. Ouyang Shua brought the white snake to the tea-house again. The waiter recognized Ouyang Shua and enthusiastically led him to a private room that had been reserved. "That young master in white hasn't arrived yet?" "Not yet." Ouyang Shua nodded and waited patiently. About half an hour later, the scholar in white appeared at the entrance of the tea-house. The waiter had been guarding the door. When he saw the young master in white, he immediately greeted him. "Young master, please come in." As he spoke, he led the way to a private room. The young master in white followed behind. Seeing that the destination was a private room, he asked in confusion, "Waiter, I only need a seat in the lobby. There's no need to go to a private room." The waiter smiled and said, "To be honest, young master, there's a noble person waiting for you in a private room." "Noble person? I don't know anyone in the capital city." "Young master, you'll know when you go in." The young master in white was straightforward. "All right, then I'll go in." Pushing open the screen of the private room, he saw a young man brewing tea with a focused expression. When the young man heard the voice, he looked up and saw that it was Ouyang Shua. How could the white snake know that Wei Yang was different from others? Unless he was willing to become an official, it would be hard to persuade such a great talent. With Wei Yang's style, he would rather linger in the tea-houses and taverns than visit the various places. Ouyang Shua knew that Wei Yang had the intention to live in seclusion. Therefore, Ouyang Shua seemed to be watching the game on the surface, but he was actually trying to figure out what Wei Yang wanted. How could he persuade this representative of legalism to come out of seclusion? It was difficult. P.S. Shamelessly asking for recommendation votes and monthly vote. Thanks. To be continued. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.